Chapter 70. Gulp. Gulp. Chu Yang took out 10 bottles of nurturing spirit pellets, chi-generating pellets, and divine accumulation pellets. He swallowed them all in one go. Then, he activated his genius martial spirit and began to deduce the Thousand Faces secret art. In an instant, all the essentials of the Thousand Faces secret art surged in his mind like a surging river. The Thousand Faces art was not profound, but it was the summary and fusion of many skin, flesh, tendons, and bones techniques. It was a technique that was summed up after the body had been tempered to a certain level. It was very easy, but very difficult to master. There were mainly a few aspects: skin, the skin could be fine or rough. This was mostly due to the changes in the pores. Skin could also be white or black. A fair-skinned young man could also become a dark-skinned man. Flesh, the main thing was the control of muscles. A fat person could restrain all his muscles and become a thin person. A thin person could naturally become a fat person. Suddenly having extra fat all came from the most exquisite and meticulous control of muscles. Tendons, the main thing was changing the tendons and meridians. Bones, this was the most important part. Only when it could be hard or soft could it be extended or contracted, and then it could change the body shape. In the Thousand Faces art, changing the facial bones was the most difficult. This was also the most important part of the Thousand Faces art. In general, the skin, flesh, tendons, and bones techniques were not single. The 4 techniques needed to be used together to achieve the desired effect. Chu Yang analyzed it and found that the Thousand Faces art was completely used to familiarize oneself with the structure of the body. The process of using and developing one's body was a treasure trove. Although it was only a high-level cultivation technique of the origin martial realm, it could be expanded infinitely. It was a pity that the creator of the cultivation technique only stopped at a certain point. But even so, Chu Yang still had a great harvest. There were many techniques in the Thousand Faces art that could increase his battle strength by a lot. And when these techniques were used in battle, they could sometimes have unexpected effects. For example, if one's arm suddenly expanded, it would definitely succeed if one was caught off guard. If one's body suddenly shrank, they might be able to dodge a fatal blow. Then there was the changing tendons and meridians technique, moving the internal organs. In times of crisis, it could avoid the vital parts to the greatest extent. It could even gather the skin and flesh together to form a defense and resist. Chu Yang tried to circulate his zhenqi under his arm, and he activated the Thousand Faces art. Suddenly, a strange feeling welled up in his heart. It was as if his arm had left his body. Even though he didn't turn around, he didn't stab backwards awkwardly. There was no obstruction at all. It was as if he had stabbed forward. Because of this sword strike was extremely strange. It was simply unimaginable. Who would have thought that he would be able to attack from the back as if he was attacking from the front without being affected at all? This Thousand Faces art is indeed very useful. Ka. The bones in Chu Yang's body made cracking sounds. In an instant, his body grew taller by a head. Soon after, his muscles swelled up and his skin became coarse and rough. Even his hair grew lush. In an instant, he turned from a delicate and pretty youth into a burly man. Ka. Suddenly, the sound of joints cracking came from his body again. His body suddenly became half shorter, as if he had turned into a dwarf. However, the compression of his joints was too severe. He didn't have to hold on for long before he recovered. Youth, middle-aged, fat, thin, handsome, ugly, Chu Yang performed all of them in an instant. As for the Thousand Faces art, he directly cultivated it to the acme of perfection. Then, without stopping, he began to analyze the Golden Emperor technique. The Golden Emperor secret art was somewhat similar to the Mahamayuri scripture. The true Qi would construct the Dharma idol of the Golden Emperor. However, the Golden Emperor secret art was too damaged. Even with the genius martial spirit, Chu Yang could only deduce a vague metallic dragon. I have never seen a real dragon, but there is a flood dragon in the 18 flood dragon strikes. The skin, flesh, tendons, and bones are all very clearly analyzed. Moreover, The flood dragon's brutality and killing is more in line with the golden killing chi than the true dragon. As soon as the thought came to his mind, a dragon's roar came from his body. A platinum flood dragon appeared in his Dantian Chi Si. Kai. Chu Yang used the golden Geng Tru Chi in the platinum flood dragon to support his sword. When he stabbed it into a blue stone, it felt like he was piercing through paper. There was almost no resistance. Sure enough, with an inner strength that supports the sword art, the power of the sword art is enhanced. It is sharper and more aggressive. Regardless of whether it was the Thousand Faces art or the Golden Emperor technique, they were all his cultivation methods and martial skills. The benefits were amazing. After practicing both of them thoroughly, Chu Yang directly rushed back to Coiling Dragon Town. Along the way, he also found time to cultivate the new martial skills he had obtained. With his current realm, he did not have to worry about biting off more than he could chew. Instead, he was worried that he did not have enough cultivation methods to broaden his horizons. The next day, at noon, Chu Yang returned to the Coiling Dragon Martial Arts Institution. In less than 7 days, it seemed that not only did he change a lot, but the martial arts institution also changed a lot. Compared to before Chu Yang went to Fallen Dragon City, the martial arts institution was more lively than before. Soon, Chu Yang knew the reason for this. Because of the core disciple competition, the core disciples who were rarely seen in the past had all returned to the martial arts institution to prepare to participate in the core disciple competition. Not only was the martial courtyard livelier than usual, there were also many more quails. Those arrogant inner disciples had no choice but to tuck their tails between their legs and behave themselves at this time. Because the core disciples had returned, they were no longer the overlords of the mountain when there were no tigers. When Chu Yang returned, many inner disciples recognized Chu Yang from afar and saluted him on the way. Now that Chu Yang was a core disciple, his identity was different from theirs. This time, Chu Yang had not only won the championship, but he had also established his prestige in the academy. Chu Yang was not arrogant and nodded in response. Along the way, just as he was about to return home, a wild laughter suddenly came. Ji Jingcheng, I have heard of your name before. I heard that you are a famous genius, but now it seems that you are just SOSO. Chapter 71. The Disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Insti Tushan. Only the Zhao clan dared to speak so arrogantly in the Coiling Dragon town. What was going on with Ji Jingcheng? His strength wasn't weak. Chu Yang pulled an inner disciple beside him and asked, "What is going on? Why is it so noisy over there? Are the Zhao clan here to provoke our martial Insti Tushan? Senior brother Chu, you are back. That is great." Hearing the excited voice, that inner disciple was immediately in high spirits. He might be older than Chu Yang, but no one felt strange when he addressed Chu Yang as senior brother. Strength was revered, and the strong was revered. Therefore, the stronger one was the first. They are here to provoke us. This person opened his mouth and said, "Today, the Zhao family sent our martial courtyard to discuss the core disciple competition. There are several Zhao family disciples who came along with us. One of them is called Zhao Yunyang. He is the champion of the Zhao family's competition. The moment he arrived, he challenged the top 5 of our Insti Tushan. He defeated the other 3 senior brothers. He might not be senior brother Ji, but he is very treacherous. He actually plotted against senior brother Ji. Coiling Dragon Fruit, Coiling Dragon Secret Domain. This time's core tournament was related to this. Chu Yang instantly thought of many things. He frowned slightly. The Zhao clan was probably here to provoke and suppress the martial Insti Tushan. As for the champion of the Zhao clan's clan tournament, it was similar to the Coiling Dragon martial Insti Tushan. The only difference was that the Coiling Dragon martial Insti Tushan. The Zhao clan's clan tournament was much more dangerous and bitter than the Coiling Dragon martial Insti Tushan. The Coiling Dragon martial Insti Tushan. The Zhao clan's clan tournament was held once a year. Every time, the champion would compete with the champion of the Coiling Dragon martial Insti Tushan. The difference this time was that the core disciple assessment was involved in the contest for the Coiling Dragon Secret Domain and the Coiling Dragon Fruit. The confrontation between the two seemed to have been brought forward, and the timing was very interesting. They actually came to provoke the coiling dragon martial insti Tushan. This was obviously a slap in the face. It wasn't that no one in the martial insti Tushan could beat Zhao Yunyang like a dead dog, but they were not allowed to interfere in the contest between the younger generation core disciples. Once they interfered, not only would the coiling dragon martial institution appear weak, the Zhao clan would also send people to interfere. The coiling dragon martial institution and the Zhao clan had been fighting openly and covertly for so many years, and there was already an unspoken rule. In a fight between the same level, whoever interfered would be disgraced. Of course, the prerequisite was that Zhao Yunyang had to be able to suppress everyone from the coiling dragon martial insti Tushan. If he wasn't able to do so, then it would be a waste of effort. Zhao family? Chu Yang started to ridicule. He wanted to kill and seize the treasures again, but it was a pity that this was the coiling dragon martial institution. Furthermore, that so-called Zhao Yunyang was probably a pauper, which was a little boring. However, he was still very willing to slap the Zhao clan in the face. He pushed aside the crowd and directly entered. At the center of the field, Ji Jingcheng held a long sword in one hand while blood continuously flowed from his other hand. His complexion was somewhat unsightly. On the other side, there was a young man with a proud and complacent expression on his face. He also had a sharp sword in his hand. His cultivation was at the middle 8th level of the primitive martial realm. For a disciple of the martial courtyard, this level was not low. On the other hand, after Ji Jingcheng cultivated the sword Dao body, his cultivation had yet to recover. Despicable. Zhao Yunyang, if you didn't use the poison needle to injure senior brother Ji, how could you have won against him? Shameless. Are all the people from the Zhao clan like this? Ha ha ha, when you are fighting to the death, don't tell me you want to ask your opponent not to use concealed weapons. Zhao Yunyang sneered, his face revealed a disdainful expression. This can only be because your martial institution's so-called genius is too stupid. How can such a person be called a genius? If he was in our Zhao clan, he wouldn't be a dog fart and would already be a dead man. Despicable. Shameless. Chapter 72. Is there no one stronger in your coiling dragon martial institution? I heard that there is a champion this time. Why don't I see him? Could it be that he is too scared to come out? Ahahaha. Zhao Yunyang laughed arrogantly. Swish. A shocking sword chi descended from the sky and cleaved towards Zhao Yunyang like a tidal wave. Zhao Yunyang was shocked. He stomped his feet and dodged the shocking sword chi. He immediately yelled, "Who is it? How dare you sneak attack me? You are not looking for me." Chu Yang responded and walked out from the crowd. It is senior brother Chu Yang. It is senior brother Chu. It is great that he is back. Zhao Yunyang will not be arrogant anymore. You dare to sneak attack me? Zhao Yunyang said in shock and anger. That sword chi was extremely sharp and terrifying. If he was half a beat slower, he would be a dead man now. Sneak attack. Isn't that the style you were advocating? This is interesting, Chu Yang said sarcastically with a smile on his face. Suddenly, the surrounding disciples of the coiling dragon martial institution burst into laughter. It was obvious that Chu Yang was using Zhao Yunyang's words to slap his face. Weren't you being smug just now? Now, you are being humiliated by your own words. How do you feel now? Zhao Yunyang's face turned red as he shouted, "Who are you? Are you really stupid or are you pretending to be stupid? Or are you deaf? But I am not interested in repeating myself." Chu Yang said indifferently. You are Chu Yang, that little sheep. Zhao Yunyang looked at Chu Yang with an ugly expression. He opened his mouth but didn't know how to scold Chu Yang. Could he call Chu Yang a despicable person? But he was the one who injured Ji Jingcheng with a concealed weapon. This time, he had no choice but to suffer in silence. Good, good, good. I heard that you are the champion of this year's Coiling Dragon Martial Institution Grand Tournament. Do you dare to come up the stage and fight with me? Zhao Yunyang said angrily. You're too weak and boring. I'll force myself to give you a sword strike. If you can block it, you're strong. You can continue to show off. Sure. After Chu Yang finished speaking, he stomped his foot, causing a gust of wind to rise. He casually raised his hand and swung his sword, causing waves of qi to surge out, one after another. 3 waves swept out, directly submerging Zhao Yunyang. This sword move was simple and unadorned. It looked like a sword technique evolved from the wave-dispersing palm, but in fact, it was not. This was just a casual swing of the sword by Chu Yang, an ordinary move. This was enough to deal with Zhao Yunyang. As soon as the sword was drawn, Chu Yang sheathed his sword and waited to watch the show. The sword qi surged like waves. Each wave was more powerful than the last. The 3 waves overlapped at the same time. It was very astonishing. In an instant, it arrived in front of Zhao Yunyang. A trace of fear flashed in Zhao Yunyang's eyes, and he hurriedly brandished a long sword qi. Boom! There was a huge explosion. The 2 sword qi collided in the air, causing a terrifying explosion. However, Chu Yang's sword qi did not disperse. Instead, it was like a hot knife through butter. It directly broke through Zhao Yunyang's sword qi and ruthlessly slashed on Zhao Yunyang's treasure sword. Bang! The sword qi wave collided with the long sword. The 3 forces overlapped and formed a huge force, causing Zhao Yunyang to spurt out a mouthful of blood. His body was like a kite with a broken string. He flew up high and heavily landed on the ground. Silence. Complete silence. All the spectating disciples did not expect that the arrogant and despotic Zhao Yunyang could not even block one of Chu Yang's moves. Chapter 73. Sigh, I'm bullying you. I shouldn't have taken action against someone like you. Forget it, just take it as me bullying you. This is a small lesson for you, so that you won't be arrogant. Also, remember that you'd better not appear in my path in the future, or you will feel inferior. Haha. The disciples of the martial academy burst into laughter. These words were too satisfying. Chu Yang didn't feel the slightest pressure when facing an opponent of Zhao Yunyang's level. He just raised his hand and dealt with him as if he was kicking a barking dog. I really hope that the Zhao family will be enraged and send someone rich to give me a chance to kill and steal the treasure. That would be perfect. Chu Yang felt that he was hopeless. You my ass. Chu Yang stretched his waist and walked away. At the same time, he opened his mouth and said, "Learn to be obedient. Remember to take a detour when you see me. Do you hear me clearly, you poor bastard?" Zhao Yunyang saw Chu Yang's cold eyes and suddenly felt ashamed and angry. Blood kept flowing out from the corner of his mouth. I want revenge, sooner or later I will tear you into pieces to avenge today's hatred. Zhao Yunyang shouted in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Just now, Chu Yang's eyes made him feel that it was too terrifying. He was really disdainful to the extreme, as if he was a chicken or a dog that he could kill at will. Because, he was sure that only he dared to make a move, Chu Yang would definitely dare to kill him, just like killing a chicken. Chu Yang is getting more and more terrifying. Yeah, he actually sent Zhao Yunyang flying with one sword. It's really terrifying. In the previous major competition, he shouldn't be so scary. It's only been a few days now. What I care about is that Chu Yang's sword just now evolved from the wave-parting palm. Damn it, why is this wave-parting palm not so powerful when I practice it? You don't even know who you are, how can this be compared? Chu Yang. Ji Jingcheng had already stopped bleeding. His gaze was incomparably complicated. He looked in the direction that Chu Yang had left in and felt that he was getting further and further away from him. He had a feeling that he would never be able to catch up. Others may not know, but how could he not know? Even if Zhao Yunyang didn't use hidden weapons, his strength was almost on par with him, and he may not necessarily win against Zhao Yunyang. However, Zhao Yunyang couldn't even block one sword strike from Chu Yang and was directly killed. It was obvious that if Chu Yang wanted to kill Zhao Yunyang, it would be effortless. Ji Jingcheng could still vividly remember his battle with Chu Yang during the academy tournament. After that battle, he gained a lot of insights. With Chu Yang's help, he cultivated a sword Dao body. Relying on the insights he had gained from that battle and his sword Dao body, he felt that he had advanced at a terrifying speed. However, compared to Chu Yang's progress, is the gap really that big? Ji Jingcheng couldn't help but smile bitterly. Chu Yang had helped him cultivate a sword Dao body, and he hoped that he would be able to return the favor one day. However, it seemed that it was impossible now. He could only look at Chu Yang's figure now. Chu Yang naturally didn't know what he was feeling. Now, Chu Yang's vision was no longer a mere Zhao clan or a mere coiling dragon martial institution. Chapter 74. Chu Yang's big brother, Chu Fei. Big brother actually came back. Chu Fei suddenly heard Chu Yang's teasing. He glanced over and said with a smile, "I heard from little Na and mother that little brother has changed a lot. I didn't believe it before, but now I have no choice but to believe it. You even dare to tease your brother like this." Chu Fei's face was a little pale. Although there was a smile on his face, there seemed to be a hint of tiredness in his voice. It seemed that it took a lot of effort to open his mouth to speak. "Of course, Brother Fei, don't you know whose brother I am?" Suddenly, Chu Yang's voice stopped abruptly. The moment he looked at his big brother, Chu Fei, his pupils shrank. His body suddenly erupted with a tyrannical and murderous aura. It was as if a ferocious dragon had suddenly appeared, making the world seem to be silent at this moment. "Who cut off your arm?" Chu Yang looked at his big brother, Chu Fei's pale face, especially when he saw that one of his arms was empty. His eyes were incomparably cold, and his voice was as cold as ice. His aura was very shocking. Even Chu Na was frightened, and her eyes couldn't help but reveal a look of horror. "This is indeed my home." Chu Fei's heart warmed. No matter where he was, he would never feel such warmth. No matter what, in this home, he would never feel indifference, disdain, ridicule, or kick a man when he was down. Chu Fei was a genius, but he was knocked off his pedestal. These days, he didn't know how many times he had been ridiculed. It could be said that he had seen all kinds of people and the fickleness of the world. Chu Fei didn't want to talk too much about his own affairs, and didn't want his family to worry about him. He cleverly changed the topic. "Flood Dragon, little brother, you're amazing. The essence of the Flood Dragon has been grasped incisively and vividly by you." Chu Fei was amazed. He had heard that his little brother had changed a lot and had become extremely shocking, but he never thought that it would be so amazing. The Flood Dragon's charm was so exquisite. When it was angry, it was like a mad flood dragon. It was very frightening. Just this point alone was far inferior to the elite disciples of the Five Elements sect. "Brother Fei, you have good eyes." Chu Yang was flabbergasted. At the same time, he could roughly understand his elder brother's feelings. Also, he seemed to have scared his elder sister. He restrained his anger and deliberately smiled to ease the atmosphere he had just created. "Brother Fei, let's talk about your embarrassing history. I've been waiting for this day for a long time, and it's finally here today. Tell me, which brother understood my jealousy and hatred towards you so well that he took one of your chicken wings and roasted it?" Chicken wings? Chu Fei smiled bitterly. One of his arms had turned into a chicken wing. However, he felt at ease in his heart. His little brother was much more mature than he had imagined. Just this teasing tone was probably something that he could not do in the past. "You'll know when you go to the Sky Academy." The Sky Academy was one of the 6 academies in the East Continent. It was a little far away from Chu Yang. The area where he was now was only a corner of the Eastern Wilderness Continent, which was very far away from the East Continent. If he wanted to go to the East Continent, he at least had to go to the Five Elements sect first. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes. "The Sky Academy, right? I see. But Brother Fei, you have to tell my benefactor in person. Otherwise, how can I thank him when the time comes?" Domineering and confident. "Is this my younger brother, Chu Fei?" Chu Fei looked at Chu Yang with eyes full of admiration. Towards his younger brother who was relentlessly pursuing him, the corners of his mouth suddenly hooked up into a smile. He suddenly opened his mouth and said, "This time, it's all thanks to younger sister-in-law. Otherwise, I wouldn't have just lost a chicken wing. I reckon that the whole chicken would have been roasted and eaten." Chapter 75. Sister-in-law. These 2 words were very important. Just as Chu Fei had expected, Chu Yang's eyes suddenly bulged and almost popped out of their sockets. Chu Fei wanted to laugh and thought, little sheep, you think I can't control you? Chu Yang was thoroughly thunderstruck. It could be said that heavenly thunder was rolling over his head. He suddenly looked at Chu Yunlong. Father, you actually have a child outside and even gave birth to a son. You did a good job of keeping it a secret. As long as the red flag at home doesn't fall, the red flag outside flutters. As he spoke, he looked at Chu Yunlong with admiration and admiration. He expressed his overflowing reverence. Father, you are really a role model for my generation. I am your son, so please teach me some of your secrets. Chu Yunlong's face suddenly stiffened. That stiffened expression made Chu Fei and Chu Na laugh out loud. Even their mother, Liu Yi, also laughed out loud. Ha ha. Suddenly, there was a huge burst of laughter in the house. It seemed that everyone was about to laugh to tears. You little bastard. Chu Yunlong was also angered by him. He heard that he had a fiancé. Did he have to be like this? He scolded, I only have you 2 bastard sons, and your brother only has you as a bastard younger brother. Now you know. I don't know, I really don't know. Chu Yang shook his head, I don't know anything about the sister-in-law that Brother Fei is talking about. Don't blame it on me. Also, I am timid. Don't scare me. If I am scared, you will have to find some courage to come back. Haha. Chu Yang's appearance made Chu Fei and Chu Na laugh so hard that they couldn't straighten their backs. This little sheep also had times when he was scared. It was really rare to see him like this. It was like burying one's head in the sand, deceiving oneself and others. Little brother, I really do have a sister-in-law, and I really only have you as my younger brother. Haha. As he said that, Chu Fei couldn't help but laugh again. Chu Yang put on a serious look, Brother Fei, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Be careful or I will sue you for slander and tarnish my reputation. Haha. This time, the whole family laughed. They saw that Chu Yang's face was almost pale. I know, you must all be jealous of my good looks and are deliberately lying to me. Envy, jealousy, and hate, this is unacceptable. Chu Yang started to make things difficult for Chu Yunlong. I say, Brother Fei's father, forget about Brother Fei, but you're already past the age of seducing girls. Is it appropriate for you to be jealous of your son? Haha. Chu Fei and the others laughed like crazy. Chu Yunlong was once again angered by him. He actually used him to make fun of him again. He immediately gave Chu Yang a knock on the head and explained, do you still remember Uncle Shangguan who came to live with us when you were 6 years old? Chu Yang stared blankly for a moment. The image of an extremely delicate little girl appeared in his mind. She was always following behind him. Moreover, she was extremely afraid of the dark. She always had to hug him at night in order to sleep peacefully, especially on thunderous and rainy nights. Lan Lan. It was an extremely distant name. It had probably been 10 years since he had called out such a name. Yes, it's little Lan. Chu Yunlong said, at that time, your uncle Shangguan said that the 2 of you were very suitable for husband and wife, so at that time, he arranged for the 2 of you to be engaged. Chu Yang sat directly on the ground. Anyway, Chu Yang was thunderstruck. He was suddenly completely bound to a woman. He didn't even know what this so-called Lan Lan looked like. Immediately, he wailed, Father, you're definitely not my biological father. How can you cheat your own son like this? Don't be ungrateful. It's good enough that she likes you. Chu Yunlong gave Chu Yang another knock on the head. A month ago, I sent your uncle Shangguan a letter saying that you were naughty and wanted to break off this marriage, but your uncle Shangguan didn't agree. Then, Chu Yunlong's tone became solemn. Yang we have to remember this favor. No matter what, we can't let Lan Lan down, understand? Another golden hoop spell was cast on Chu Yang. Chu Yang had no choice but to do this. Otherwise, his big brother might have already been a dead man. This was the way the world was. Chu Yang could only accept it. He said honestly, yes, this child will remember. Chapter 76. Sky Courtyard. I'll go there. Chu Yang wasn't serious for a while. Then, he suddenly screamed again, my life. There are so many forests in the world. There are so many demonesses, saintesses, goddesses, and fairies. I missed them all just like that. Oh heavens, why are you so cruel to me? The whole family was speechless. Chu Yang was getting more and more ridiculous. It was as if he would die if he didn't do something funny. Chu Yunlong, Liu Yi, and Chu Na were more or less familiar with Chu Yang, but Chu Fei was still a little stunned. He couldn't help but mutter to his parents, "Is this really that little sheep? Brother Fei, your expression makes me feel like I'm losing face." Chu Yang said as he patted Chu Fei's shoulder, "Brother Fei, don't worry. Although you're disabled, I, Brother Yang, will protect you in the future. I'll find you girls and take you to show off. Come, call me Brother Yang first." Being disabled was a cruel reality that Chu Fei didn't want to face. However, at this time, when his little brother said it in a teasing tone, it didn't seem like he couldn't accept it at all. Wasn't it just being disabled? Wasn't it just losing an arm? As a man, how could this be considered a big deal? Little brother, you've really grown up. You even came to enlighten me. Do I look so unbearable now? Do I look so dejected? Chu Fei's mind was instantly filled with a multitude of emotions, but everything was cut off in an instant. "Little Fei, tell your brother Yang what the upper limit of your crotch is and how many girls you can handle. This way, I'll give you an accurate number of 3 times. Chu Yang extended 3 fingers in front of Chu Fei, which instantly made Chu Fei speechless. Mother and Chu Na were both here. What nonsense was he saying? "Don't stare at me," Chu Yang said casually. "Don't be unable to accept it. I, Brother Yang, am very powerful now. You really can't do it anymore, and I, your brother goat, will be even better in the future. Maybe in a few days, I'll be able to find a chicken wing for you." When a martial artist reached a certain realm, they would be able to regrow severed limbs. This was not strange at all. They could even bring the dead back to life. Chu Yunlong looked at his son, who was not doing anything right, and felt very comforted in his heart. The brothers were harmonious, and they loved each other. Moreover, his youngest son was much more meticulous than him. Originally, it was him, the father, who should counsel his eldest son, but his youngest son had done it ahead of time. His technique was also extremely brilliant. With such a ridiculing tone and a domineering aura that did not put anything in his eyes, it seemed sloppy and did not have the slightest bit of integrity, but it was more reliable than anyone else. If others ridiculed him like this, Chu Fei would definitely be furious. However, Chu Yang's ridicule was a different matter. And after Chu Yang's ridicule, Chu Fei probably wouldn't take it seriously when others ridiculed him again. The more Chu Yunlong thought about it, the more satisfied he was with his youngest son. Little sheep. Chu Fei had already roared. He was being ridiculed by his younger brother. "Don't roar," Chu Yang suddenly said earnestly. "Little Fei, don't be unable to accept reality. Everyone has a time when they fall. That's why life is so interesting. If you really can't accept it, look down at your crotch. It can be big or small, stretch or shrink, and adapt to everything. But when you want to fight, you can fight. If you want to do it 7 times a night, you can. You can do it for 3 days and 3 nights, 7 days and 7 nights. I won't be scared. I'm a superman among men, a mutated man." Chu Fei was speechless. "You're saying that I'm sorry for the thing in my crotch? Little sheep." Chapter 77. Go to the side. Chu Yang impatiently waved his hand at her and lectured. "Your brother Yang is lecturing people. What are you doing?" After a pause, he continued, "Little Fei, where was I just now? Let's continue." "Little sheep." Chu Fei was not angry, he just pretended to be angry. "You have grown up now, come, let me see how capable you are." Chu Yang slightly hesitated, he was a little afraid of attacking his brother's fragile spirit. His brother was only at the 9th level of the origin martial realm, it could be said that he had been crippled. Now, it was very likely that he was not Chu Yang's opponent. When the time comes, the gap would be too big, especially before, he was still a little sheep. He was afraid that his brother's heart would be even more uncomfortable. "What are you waiting for, little sheep? Hurry up and come out, let me see your ability." Chu Fei had already walked into the courtyard. "I am Chu Yang's brother, how can he be so unbearable? Is it appropriate for me to look down on him?" This thought flashed. Chu Yang once again said casually, I say, little Fei, what's the hurry? The time to fight for power has already arrived. You have to hand over the power even if you don't want to. I'm just worried that when you lose too miserably, you can only hide in a corner and cry, draw circles, and curse me. Bang! Chu Yunlong really couldn't bear to look at Chu Yang's indecent behavior, so he directly kicked him out. Roar! In an instant, Chu Fei made his move. The virtual shadows of 9 ferocious tigers appeared behind him. Then, he punched Chu Yang, and an astonishing airwave bombarded Chu Yang. Little Fei, you have been temporarily crippled, you don't have much strength, don't show off. Chu Yang was like a boulder, the chi wave had no effect on him, it was cut open by his body and rolled out from both sides. With a snap, he grabbed Chu Fei's fist with one hand and did not move an inch. Peak of the 6th level of the origin martial realm, above the power of 9 tigers. Chu Fei was shocked. He hadn't used his full strength, and neither had Chu Yang. Little brother, be careful. This is the splashing wind water blade. Splashing wind water splitting blade. This blade technique was Chu Fei's famous blade technique. It was also the martial skill he was most proficient in. Chu Fei's martial spirits were a saber martial spirit, a white tiger martial spirit, and an unknown tree martial spirit. Splashing wind breaking water blade, the word splashing in it was a kind of catharsis, but also a kind of berserk. Wind was swift, there was nothing it couldn't reach. Wind covered all directions, there was nowhere it couldn't reach. Breaking was a kind of fierceness, it was a kind of killing, it could cut off a person's hand, cut off a person's head, cut off a person's life. Generally, such a saber technique would have to be laid down with a saber technique in order to fully display the power of this saber technique. This was just like how everything had a cause. It would gradually become more and more intense until a conflict broke out and reached the peak of the incident. It was impossible for an incident to reach a climax without any reason. Chu Yang watched as his big brother, Chu Fei, unleashed his saber technique in an instant. There wasn't any warm-up, yet his saber technique had reached the peak in an instant. Just this move alone was enough to make Chu Yang admire him. Little Fei, big brother Yang doesn't want to criticize you, but your body really can't take it anymore. You haven't conquered a single woman and you haven't even had a son. Just like your saber technique, it's completely useless. Don't you think you're a failure? Chu Yang's words were flowery, but his movements weren't the least bit sluggish. In an instant, he had changed 8 arms, each of them thrusting out with a sword. Great thousand-leaf hands, great perfection. Chu Fei's pupils shrank. In an instant, their arms collided like swords and sabers. In an instant, Chu Fei felt as if every blade he had thrown out had been intercepted by Chu Yang's sword. It felt as if every blade had touched the blade of his saber. He was fast, but so was Chu Yang. Furthermore, his attacks were accurate and steady. Luo Yunyang didn't feel any hope. Chapter 78. Chu Fei's saber technique suddenly changed. His hand was like a saber as he unleashed a saber technique. He didn't use any technique, but it was extremely heavy like a mountain crushing down. Heavy saber, 1 against 10. The only difference was that Chu Fei's heavy saber was so powerful that it could defeat 10 martial artists. It was completely different from the martial artists Chu Yang had met in the academy competition. In fact, it could be said that there was a world of difference between them. Chu Fei's heavy saber was domineering, unreasonable, and sharp. No technique could be used, and there was no way to dodge. Even if one tried to dodge, they would still be crushed. Little Fei, don't take advantage of your seniority. Although you are older than me, the bigger fist is the truth. When I came back earlier, everyone in the academy was calling me senior brother. Chu Yang saw everything clearly. He suddenly used the divine elephant climbing mountain from the vigorous fragrant elephant technique, and used it in conjunction with the wind-chasing life-snatching sword. His arm shot out like a sword. Suddenly, the vastness of the Dharma and the difficulty of comprehending the Tao caused everything to become extremely heavy. Even the mighty divine elephant was about to be crushed. Even the earth seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Boom! The two collided, causing a violent gale to wreak havoc in the surroundings. The collision even created a dazzling light that completely drowned out the figures of the two. Heavy against heavy, little brother's aura is not weaker than mine. He even has the slight advantage. Chu Fei was once again shocked. He heard that this little brother of his had become enlightened and became extremely frightening. However, after experiencing it personally, he truly felt how frightening this little brother of his was. Especially when he was fighting with him, he was absent-minded and even had the mood to talk nonsense. Who had this ability? No one from the coiling dragon town, no one from the Five Elements sect dared to do this to him. However, his little brother did it. Little sheep, you have an idea. This is the extreme yin slaughter saber. Chu Fei no longer had any scruples and unleashed all of his strength. The extreme yin slaughter saber, the yin in it, was not the yin in yin and yang. In the ancient art of war of Tai Gong, the commander's seal was also called the yin seal. Therefore, the yin in the extreme yin slaughter saber represented slaughter, destruction, and crusade. The moon was the pinnacle of slaughter. This was a saber technique that Chu Fei had chanced upon while exploring a perilous land. It was extremely astonishing. Ever since he succeeded in cultivating it, no one had been able to withstand a single slash from his great yin slaughter saber, other than losing an arm in a defeat. Chu Fei slashed out with one hand like a saber. Instantly, the ground was scraped by the saber chi. In an instant, the ground became as smooth as a mirror. The void also seemed to be cut into two halves. A faint blood-red color spread out. Killing chi and killing intent surged out like an avalanche, capable of destroying the world. Just this terrifying killing intent alone would cause an ordinary person's mind to crumble in an instant. Needless to say, that terrifying saber chi was so sharp that it seemed like nothing could stop it. Even the person who had chopped off one of his arms did not dare to face his saber technique head-on. Chu Yang naturally felt the terror within. To be exact, this was the most shocking and terrifying saber strike he had ever faced in his entire life. His mind was shaken, and he was enveloped by the immense killing intent. Fear almost seized his soul. Roar. A dragon's roar came from Chu Yang's body. An extremely brutal and murderous aura erupted from his body. There were 2 faint Jiao dragons within the twin suns. 18 Jiao dragon strikes. Wind-chasing life-reaping sword. The Jiao dragon's brutality, indifference, nobility, and killing intent were all integrated into the wind-chasing life-reaping sword. The killing intent and killing intent were deduced to the extreme. Chapter 79. That's what I've heard. Chu Yang changed his swordsmanship halfway through. The murderous intent completely disappeared, and was replaced by compassion, as if he bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. At this moment, he seemed to have become a Buddha. When he saw the demon Chu Fei slaughtering the common people, he wanted to stop Chu Fei. Fragrant elephant crossing the river, cutting the flow of the masses, bang! When the 2 hands collided, it was like a sword touching the edge of a blade. There was no huge collision, only a muffled sound. It was as if the Buddha had suppressed the demon, stopped the slaughter, stopped the evil, cut off all the evil and murderous intent of the demon, and made him lay down his butcher's knife and become a Buddha. Silence, incomparable silence. There was no sound at all. Chu Yang and Chu Fei were like statues carved by the heavens. They didn't move at all. Chu Fei was really stunned. He was petrified. His terrifying saber was actually broken so easily. Just now, he only felt that everything about him was cut off. True chi, physical strength, and spirit were all cut off at that moment. It was to the extent that he couldn't unleash the power and terror of that saber. His pupils trembled. He glanced at his father, mother, and little sister from the corner of his eyes. They all looked relieved. He suddenly felt a wave of guilt in his heart. He had made them worry. But this made him even more shocked. His little brother had obviously taken this into consideration, which was why he took the risk to change his move midway. How dangerous was it to change his move midway? If it was an enemy, Chu Yang wouldn't be able to defeat him and would definitely die. But just now, if Chu Yang couldn't resist and he couldn't control his strength, he would definitely have seriously injured Chu Yang. Little brother would rather be seriously injured than be injured. He had lost. He had lost completely. Compared to Chu Yang, he didn't immediately notice the worry of his parents and little sister. Chu Yang sensed it. Chu Yang changed his moves halfway, which was almost like a master giving way to his disciple. But even so, he still couldn't win in the end. Chu Fei did not feel sad. On the contrary, he was very gratified. He felt warm, and even his heart was enveloped by joy. However, he could not help but feel a huge sense of loss in his heart. Although his strength had fallen to the primordial realm, his ultimate move was actually so weak. Even if his little brother changed his move, he would still be able to block it. It seemed that he had overestimated himself in the past and thought that he was a genius. Only now did he realize that he was actually nothing. He was just a fool who thought that he was smart. Chu Fei's mood was complicated. Suddenly, he was stunned. Xiao Fei, there are many times in life like this. You have to be strong and stand up bravely. Chu Yang patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, I think you're doing well. In an instant, the great sense of loss in Chu Fei's heart completely disappeared. He was comforted again, and he was being made fun of again. He could only laugh. This little brother of his really couldn't do anything to this guy. He really was treating him like an elder and lecturing him. Haha, I finally have a day where I can stand out among my peers. The genius Xiao Fei is finally being trampled under my feet. Dad, I'm warning you. You can't be biased in the future. I'm also born of a mother. Otherwise, I'll beat Xiao Fei to death for revenge. Chu Yang suddenly laughed loudly. He did not hide his pride and arrogance. This made Chu Fei grit his teeth for no reason. He had an impulse to beat up this arrogant little brother of his. Xiao Fei, be strong. Chu Fei really did grit his teeth and roared, Little sheep, I'm the big brother. Xiao Fei, you have to admit the truth. No matter how loud you shout, it's useless. Black lines appeared on Chu Fei's forehead. He was about to violently beat up this little brother who had taken an inch and wanted a mile. But Chu Yang's finger pointed at his forehead. Suddenly, his entire body froze. Mahamayuri Sutra. 5-colored clouds, 5-colored lotus platform, Mahamayuri Sutra. This is, how could Chu Fei not know about the Mahamayuri Sutra? The first cultivation technique he practiced was also the Mahamayuri Sutra. Even Chu Yang's Mahamayuri Sutra was taught by him. This is the origin martial third transformation. Chu Fei finally cried out. He looked at Chu Yang in disbelief. And with his roar, the three of them were almost petrified. They looked at Chu Yang as if he was a monster. Come on, it's only the origin martial third transformation. What's so strange about it? Chu Yang curled his lips and said disdainfully, Xiao Fei, take your time being surprised. I, brother sheep, won't be accompanying you. Suddenly, he turned his head back and exhorted, also, Xiao Fei, don't forget. While you're at it, understand life. What it means to be blessed by misfortune. It's not that I want to criticize you, but you are just too uncultured. With his hands behind his back, he took crab steps and completely disappeared from Chu Fei, Chu Yunlong and company's line of sight. Ha, blessing by misfortune. After a while, Chu Yang was completely relieved when he heard his elder brother's laughter. A day and a night passed. After Chu Fei obtained the cultivation technique for the origin martial third transformation, he was completely immersed in it. The next day, when the family had lunch, he was nowhere to be seen. And just as Chu Yang finished his meal and was preparing to practice his cultivation technique, he suddenly heard a commotion outside the yard. Chapter 80. Zhao Yunfei, do you have money? This was Chu Yang's first reaction. After killing and robbing twice, he really couldn't stop. The harvest was too great and it was faster than any kind of bitter cultivation. Of course, he naturally knew that the Zhao family was here to seek revenge. Previously, Zhao Yunyang couldn't even block one of his moves. How could the Zhao family maintain their face? Especially the coiling dragon martial institution that had been fighting openly and secretly for many years. Chu Yang walked out and instantly saw Zhao Yunyang staring at him with resentment. His face was still pale and it was obvious that his internal injuries from yesterday had not completely healed. In front of Zhao Yunyang, there was a 25 or 26-year-old young man holding a sword. He had a robust body and was extremely handsome. This should be Zhao Yunyang's brother, Zhao Yunfei. Behind the two brothers, there was a group of Zhao family disciples who were valiant and high-spirited. But behind them, there were even more disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Seeing that Zhao Yunfei, an expert of the Zhao family, had come to challenge Chu Yang, how could they not come? As for Zhao Yunfei, all the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution knew that he was one of the 5 core disciples of the Zhao family. He was extremely powerful and was in the mid-9th level of the Origin Martial Realm. Chu Yang walked out with a mocking expression and said with a grin, "What's wrong, Zhao Yunyang? Did you find your parents?" Ha ha ha. Immediately, the spectating disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution burst into laughter. The incident of Chu Yang insta-killing Zhao Yunyang yesterday had already spread throughout the Martial Institution. They were naturally clear of Chu Yang's intention. Zhao Yunyang's face was flushed red and his expression was even more resentful. He couldn't wait to rush over and tear Chu Yang into pieces. "You what?" Chu Yang lazily said, "Didn't I tell you to take a detour when you see me in the future? Otherwise, you will feel inferior. Unfortunately, I'm doing it for your own good, but you don't seem to understand human language. Little sheep, don't flaunt your mouth. Today, I will teach you a lesson." Zhao Yunfei impatiently said, "Today, I will break one of your legs and let you know how powerful I am. Even if you want to see me, take a detour." Chu Yang's expression was relaxed. "Little sheep, your brother, that so-called genius, has been crippled. No one can save you now." After saying that, Zhao Yunfei made his move. His figure leaped out in an instant, and he slashed out with his sword. The tip of his sword shot out an intense sword chi. The friction between the sword chi and the air caused a violent explosion. The strength of the middle stage of the 9th level of the Origin Martial Realm was completely unleashed. The surrounding people all let out a low cry. This sword was extremely fast, like lightning. It felt as if a bolt of lightning had suddenly struck down from the sky. In the eyes of the crowd, the word fast was already extremely fast. The reputation of being one of the top 5 experts among the core disciples of the Zhao family was indeed not an undeserved reputation. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Yunfei had already arrived in front of Chu Yang. Of course, the so-called fast was only for others. For Chu Yang, this was simply a child's play. His big brother, Chu Fei, was the kind of fast that made people unable to breathe. Almost at the same time, no one could see clearly that the sword in Chu Yang's hand had already been unsheathed. The sword light covered the sky. The dazzling sword light formed a sword curtain in the air and instantly blocked in front of Zhao Yunfei. Clang! A loud sound of metal colliding was heard. Zhao Yunfei was determined to defeat Chu Yang in one move. However, he suddenly felt a huge force being transmitted from the sword to him. Deng deng deng! He actually couldn't withstand such a terrifying force, and his body couldn't help but retreat. He retreated 8 steps before he finally stopped. At least the strength of 9 tigers. However, he is only at the peak of the 6th level of the Origin Martial Realm. How can he have such astonishing strength? The power that Chu Yang had just erupted was extremely astonishing, causing Zhao Yunfei's complexion to change. Ha 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 ha. Chu Yang easily blocked the sword. The disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution suddenly burst into laughter, ridiculing him. Is the Zhao family only SOSO? Just a moment ago, he acted like he was the boss. Why is his face so ugly now? It's a pity that it's not an instant kill. That would hurt the harmony. If that's the case, wouldn't the Zhao family feel inferior and take a detour when they see our disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution? Chapter 81. Shame, Extraordinary Shame and Humiliation. Zhao Clan's Extraordinary Shame and Humiliation. Die! Zhao Yunfei roared and rushed forward to attack again. His speed was actually much faster compared to the previous attack. The tip of the sword danced in the air, creating many sword shadows that pierced towards Chu Yang. Playing this game? Chuyang could only chuckle. With a wave of his sword, the body of the sword emitted a sharp whistling sound as it chopped towards those layers of sword shadows. Dang! An ear-piercing sound of the sword rang out. Layers of terrifying chi waves instantly surged out like waves, forming a strong wind that blew the hair of the surrounding people. The sword in Chuyang's hand did not stop moving. It was as fast as a meteor and instantly arrived in front of Zhao Yunfei. Zhao Yunfei was immediately shocked and quickly raised his sword to block. Clang! Another sword sound rang out. Chuyang's sword pierced Zhao Yunfei's sword. It looked like a simple stab, but the power was extraordinarily great. It was as if a mountain had smashed onto Zhao Yunfei's sword. The web between his thumb and index finger instantly ruptured. The sharp sword chi cut his cheek painfully. Chuyang did not stop and stabbed again. This time, it was even more powerful than the previous one. 2 swords. 3 swords. 4 swords. Each sword was as heavy as a divine elephant trampling on a mountain. Thump, thump, thump. Zhao Yunfei's long sword was unexpectedly broken into pieces. Chuyang's sword arrived in front of Zhao Yunfei in a flash. However, he did not kill him. Chuyang's sword swept horizontally towards Zhao Yunfei's face. It was as if the sword was swatting an elephant's trunk. Bang! Chuyang's sword ruthlessly hit Zhao Yunfei's face. Zhao Yunfei's face immediately swelled up and his body was immediately sent flying. Several of his big teeth were smashed and he fiercely spat out a mouthful of blood. Defeated. Zhao Yunfei was defeated. It was not much different from an instant kill. Chuyang did not attack many times, but the famous Zhao Yunfei was directly sent flying by Chuyang. Moreover, it was a slap to the face. This result was extremely shocking. The Zhao family's disciples simply didn't dare to believe that Zhao Yunfei, who they revered like a god, was actually unable to block Chuyang's attack. Not only did he lose, he lost so miserably. Even the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were shocked. Chuyang was too ferocious, and he had won by slapping his face. Big brother. Zhao Yunyang was the first to react and ran over. Chuyang looked coldly at Zhao Yunyang and said, "Don't worry, he didn't die. Hurry up and take him away. Our Coiling Dragon Martial Institution isn't a place where your Zhao clan can be presumptuous. If you dare to provoke us again, it won't end so easily. Scram. Why aren't you scramming? Do you want to die? Those bastards from the Zhao family. If you don't scram, we won't be polite anymore." The disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution started to jeer. The enmity between the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao family was already deep in their bones. The disciples of both sides didn't see eye to eye with each other. However, the strength of both sides were more or less the same. Therefore, neither side was willing to submit to the other. This time, it was completely different. After Zhao Yunyang was instantly killed by Chuyang's sword, even if his elder brother came, he wouldn't be a match for Chuyang. Everyone could see that if it wasn't for Chuyang showing mercy, Zhao Yunfei would have been stabbed to death. The news of the battle between Chuyang and Zhao Yunfei ending with Zhao Yunfei's complete defeat quickly spread throughout the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Many people didn't believe this news. Who was Chuyang? The first reaction was that he was a little sheep. Later on, he became the champion of the inner sect tournament and became a core disciple. However, he could only run amok among the inner sect disciples. To the core disciples, he was just a newcomer. Chapter 82. The news quickly spread from the mouths of the spectating disciples and was verified by many parties. Everyone had no choice but to admit that Zhao Yunfei had been defeated by Chuyang. Chuyang's reputation finally rose in the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Although Chuyang was the champion of the inner college competition, after Chuyang was promoted to a core disciple and went out to temper himself, his fame gradually subsided. Being the champion of the inner sect competition was indeed a glorious halo for the inner and outer sect disciples. However, it didn't seem to be outstanding among the core disciples. After all, the core disciples were the best among the inner sect disciples in the previous years. Among them, there were also many champions. However, After Chu Yang defeated Zhao Yunfei, it was completely different. Chu Yang's reputation had truly risen, and his name had spread throughout the Coiling Dragon martial institution. He was truly comparable to those super geniuses among the core disciples. In the depths of the Coiling Dragon martial institution, Chu Yunlong was frowning slightly. A purple-robed middle-aged man was sitting above him. His aura was restrained, making him seem like an ordinary middle-aged man. However, everyone knew that this was the dean of the Coiling Dragon martial institution, Nangong Yingtian. He was the dean of the Coiling Dragon martial institution, and his words carried enormous weight. He was the dean who held the power of life and death in his hands. Brother Yunlong, I didn't expect this little sheep to be so amazing. 2 years ago, when I saw him, he was still ordinary. I didn't expect him to have changed so much. Nangong Yingtian sighed and said. According to his current strength, he can be ranked among the top core disciples of the institution. He has been enlightened. Brother Nangong shouldn't praise him like this. Chu Yunlong didn't care about Chu Yang's performance at all. What was this? How far had they gotten? His little sheep had already taken care of Chu Fei, and had even reached the legendary origin martial third cycle. Chu Yunlong was afraid that if he said this indifferent brother Nangong would probably jump in fright. If the Zhao family knew about this, his little sheep would be in even more danger. Fortunately, his little sheep knew how to hide his strength. He had been enlightened. This was obviously a perfunctory reply. Nangong Ying didn't say anything. He paused for a moment and continued, after the core disciple competition, I plan to go out with Brother Li for a period of time and look for some opportunities to break through. I hope that you can temporarily manage the martial courtyard. Isn't there a coiling dragon fruit? Doesn't the Zhao clan have any? This time, the Zhao clan should be able to obtain more coiling dragon fruits, and this was what worried Nangong Ying the most. The coiling dragon fruits could at least increase the Chi Soul realm by 1 stage, which would completely destroy the balance between the Coiling Dragon martial institution and the Zhao clan. It was extremely dangerous. You know that I hate troublesome things. If I hadn't lost to Brother Li, I would be the one guarding the library now, Chu Yunlong said indifferently. Aren't you talking nonsense? But in the martial courtyard, other than you, I don't feel at ease. Nangong Ying was somewhat annoyed. Can I refuse? Chu Yunlong's face was full of bitterness and helplessness. He even looked a little shameless. Chu Yang and Chu Fei had never seen this side of Chu Yunlong before. He would only show this side of him when he was with Nangong Ying and the others. What do you think? Nangong Ying laughed mockingly. The result was obvious. Chu clan, little sheep, you are awesome. Adults specialize in smacking faces. Zhao Yunfei was beaten to such a state by you. I reckon he won't have the face to see anyone in the future. The Zhao clan hates you to death. Chu Na clenched her fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. This little sheep had been too active recently and had become a thorn in the side of the Zhao clan. I like it when they want to kill me but can't, Chu Yang said with a grin. Little Na, even if you don't look for them, they will come knocking on our door. Chu Fei didn't take it seriously at all, so what if you beat up a Zhao clan disciple? Only if you scare him, he won't dare to bite you. Brother, whose side are you on? Chu Na was very depressed. If this is the case, little sheep will be targeted by the Zhao clan when we enter the Coiling Dragon secret realm this time. This worry wasn't unfounded. If Chu Yang was targeted in the Coiling Dragon secret realm, it would be very dangerous. Just as well. Let's just kill them together. Chu Na realized that these two brothers didn't take it seriously at all. She had wasted her good intentions. Little sheep, come with me to meet the core disciples in the courtyard. Not only this time's core tournament, we might even have to support each other after we enter the 5 Elements sect. Chu Na completely gave up on saving the child and brought Chu Yang to meet the people. Core tournament, Coiling Dragon secret realm. This was Chu Yang's last test before he entered the 5 Elements sect. Danger and hope walked together. Chapter 83. The threshold for entering the 5 Elements sect from the Coiling Dragon martial institution wasn't very high. One could enter at least the 7th level of the origin martial realm. However, according to the standards of the Five Elements sect, the 9th level of the origin martial realm was an outer disciple, and the Chi Soul realm was an inner disciple. As for those below the 9th level of the origin martial realm, they were all odd job disciples. As for the odd job disciples, it was simple. They were basically slave disciples with no human rights and had the lowest status in the Five Elements sect. In comparison, although the outer disciples had a lower status, they didn't have to do a series of odd jobs. They could use a certain amount of resources to cultivate and even have someone to guide them. Therefore, most of the disciples from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution would choose to enter the Five Elements sect after reaching the 9th level of the origin martial realm. In the end, no one was stupid. They didn't want to call the wind and summon the rain in their own territory. Instead, they went to the Five Elements sect to be someone else's slave. In addition, no matter which sect it was, there would be small groups. Therefore, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution had to join the Five Elements sect. This was what Chu-Na meant by taking care of each other. Naturally, this was necessary. In addition, they had to work together in the Coiling Dragon secret realm to deal with the Zhao family. Therefore, Chu-Na naturally wouldn't object to meeting Chu-Yang. Besides, it was useless to resist. Chu-Na's delicate fists couldn't be resisted. Naturally, they had to meet the top. Generally speaking, whether it was the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution or the Zhao family's core disciples, the top experts were the pillars. They also represented the strength of each batch of core disciples. Among the core disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, there weren't many who could reach the top. There were only 3 people: Li Hao, Wang Xiaoman, and Zhong Tian. Li Hao was the strongest among them. Like Chu-Na, he was at the peak of the 9th level of the origin martial realm. His strength was balanced, but he was very strong. Wang Xiaoman was the same as Chu-Na. She was also a beautiful woman. Her strength was slightly weaker, at the late 9th level of the origin martial realm. Zhong Tian was a young man with a stocky back and a bare waist. His strength was similar to Wang Xiaoman's, at the late 9th level of the origin martial realm. Including Chu-Na, there were only 4 of them. Apart from the 5 great disciples of the Zhao family who had been famous for a long time, it was said that 2 people had stepped into the late 9th level of the origin martial realm and entered the ranks of the top disciples. In terms of numbers, the Zhao clan had an overwhelming advantage. Most importantly, among the elite core disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, there were 2 women. Because of this, the Zhao family was determined to obtain the Coiling Dragon fruits. That was why they had forced their core disciples to participate in the fight for the Coiling Dragon fruits in the Coiling Dragon secret realm in hopes of obtaining more Coiling Dragon fruits. The reason why the Zhao clan was able to succeed was because they had infiltrated the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. The Zhao clan's infiltration of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution had already reached the peak. This was also the reason why Nangong Ying suddenly left the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution to search for a breakthrough. He wanted to reorganize the entire Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, but this required strength. The current head of the Zhao family, Zhao Ba, was not any weaker than Nangong Ying. If not for Li Yu suppressing him, the situation would be even worse. When Chu Yang met with Li Hao and the others, it was clear that the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution had tacitly acknowledged Chu Yang's identity. Now that he had joined this small group, he would bear all the expectations and hopes of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Whether they could defeat the Zhao clan this time, they would have to rely on this small group. Time passed day by day. Chu Yang was constantly adjusting his state of mind. Finally, the day of the core disciple competition had arrived. On this day, the core disciples were gathered at the Martial Institution's plaza. Compared to the spacious plaza, the 100 or so core disciples seemed a little sparse. Not long after the arrival of Chu Yang and the others, the leading elders appeared in front of everyone. 1 tall and 1 short elders appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 84. This time, among the core disciples participating in the trial, the lineup is relatively weak. The short elder's words made the core disciples blush with shame. "I won't say any more nonsense. The short elder became serious and said in a cold voice, "The location of this trial is somewhat different. It is in the Coiling Dragon Secret Territory." What kind of place is the Coiling Dragon Secret Territory? I think you should all know. There are countless people who have lost their lives in the Coiling Dragon Martial Courtyard. I hope that a few of you can come back this time. I will ask again, who wants to withdraw? You can withdraw now. After the short elder finished speaking, more than 40 core disciples chose to withdraw, but no one laughed at their choice. After all, this was a journey of death. Although there were many benefits in the Coiling Dragon Secret Territory, the premise was that one must be able to survive. In the past, so many experts had died inside, and there was no shortage of Chi Soul experts, let alone them. This time, most of the core disciples who withdrew were below the 8th level of the primitive martial realm. Their strength was relatively weak, and it was expected that they would not be able to obtain good results, and they might even lose their lives, so in the end, they naturally chose to give up. And among this batch of core disciples who had just been promoted, only Chu Yang and Dongfang Bai continued to participate. Dongfang Bai looked very spirited. Apparently, his previous injuries had almost healed. Every one of you who participates will receive a waste token to record your points in this large competition. Every time you kill an 8th level primitive martial realm demon beast, you will be rewarded with 10 points. A 9th level primitive martial realm demon beast, you will be rewarded with 50 points, and a Chi Soul level demon beast, you will be rewarded with 1000 points. In addition, in the Coiling Dragon Secret Territory, there are 15 tokens placed by our martial courtyard and the Zhao family. They are respectively red, yellow, and green, corresponding to 100, 500, and 1000 point. At this time, Elder Gao opened his mouth and explained, in addition, the heavenly treasures you find in the Coiling Dragon Secret Territory will be converted into points after you come out. The top 3 disciples with the total points will receive the Coiling Dragon Fruit as a reward. Coiling Dragon Fruit. Suddenly, there was a commotion among the core disciples. Even the core disciples didn't know that the Coiling Dragon Fruit was going to be awarded. This was the result of an agreement between the martial institution and the Zhao family's upper echelons. Only Chu Yang was relatively calm because he knew the result in advance. The Coiling Dragon Fruit was a miraculous treasure that could raise one's Chi Soul realm by a whole realm after eating it. Furthermore, it was said that the Coiling Dragon Fruit could also improve one's martial spirit. If one ate it, one might even obtain a special ability. Many disciples who had already left secretly lamented that it was a pity. However, if you are defeated or killed, the points will be added to the person who defeated you. The short elder added. His tone was somewhat emotional. He didn't know how many people would die this time, but those who could come out alive would undoubtedly become the best of the best. So you must be careful. I hope that more of you can come back alive this time. Chu Yang was speechless. This rule was clearly encouraging people to kill each other. There were many ways to score points. One could hunt demonic beasts, obtain some heavenly treasures, and then there was the token. However, compared to these, how could it be faster than killing people? No matter how many points the other party earned, they could all be transferred to him in an instant. The core disciples had truly stepped into the cruel world of martial artists. Whether it was the inner disciples or outer disciples, although they didn't obtain many resources, they were relatively well protected. However, Chu Yang liked it. He could kill people and rob them, and it was perfectly justifiable. Chapter 85. Doesn't this mean that the core competition has become the Coiling Dragon Secret Territory competition? How can it be wrong? Look at our leaders, they are calm. They must have known about it a long time ago. If that's the case, it's too dangerous. The reward is proportional to the danger. If it's not dangerous, why would they give out 3 Coiling Dragon Fruits as a reward? The Coiling Dragon Fruits were something that even Chi Soul realm experts coveted. The core disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were still in a state of exhaustion after the 2 deacons had explained the major tournament in detail. Simply put, the Coiling Dragon Secret Territory competition this time was much more dangerous than any other core competition. Not only did they have to be careful of the demonic beasts in the Coiling Dragon Secret Territory, They also had to be careful of the disciples of the Zhao family and even some disciples of the martial institution. The human heart was unpredictable and anything could happen. Many core disciples left one after another. After a while, there were no more changes. The two deacons looked at them and asked again, "Is there anyone else who wants to leave?" There was no response. "Let's go." The two deacons waved their hands and led the dozens of core disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution towards the entrance of the Coiling Dragon secret territory. Apart from Chu Yang, the rest of the core disciples were at least at the 8th level of the Origin Martial Realm. Their strength was very high and their speed was naturally fast. In less than an hour, they had already reached the entrance of the Coiling Dragon secret territory. At the entrance, the space was faintly distorted as if it wasn't stable, but the energy was dense. The demonic beasts seemed to have smelled something and gathered there. However, when the two deacons released their terrifying aura, the demonic beasts didn't dare to approach. Shoo, almost at the same time, the people of the Zhao family arrived. They were led by two elders of the Zhao family. One of them had a single eye and the other had a scar on his face. Both of them had a malicious gaze and a gloomy expression. When they arrived, they landed in front of the two deacons. It was like 4 waves crashing together. A violent wind blew and 4 air vortexes were formed. Behind the two elders, there was also a group of elite disciples of the Zhao family. They had more people than the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, and there were 7 of them leading the group. The 7 of them stood proudly with an overbearing aura. They were sizing up the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution with disdain. The confrontation between the two sides seemed to be on the verge of breaking out at any moment. Chu Yang had a general understanding of the 7 leaders of the Zhao family from the vigilance of the disciples of the Martial Arts Institute. The auras of the 3 people were extremely powerful. They were Zhao Yunjian, Zhao Yunj, and Zhao Xiaoyi. 2 men and 1 woman. These 3 people also stood at the very front. All of them were at the peak of the 9th level of the primitive martial realm, almost stepping into the Qi Soul realm. The remaining 4 were Zhao Yunfei, Zhao Yunyang, Zhao Hongyuan, and Zhao Yiyang. Zhao Hongyuan and Zhao Yiyang were clearly not Zhao family branch disciples, but they were both above the late-stage 9th level of the primitive martial realm. Each of them had unfathomable strength. Among them, Zhao Yunyang was the weakest. Therefore, the Zhao family's aura instantly overwhelmed the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution's side. On the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution's side, the 4 peak experts were Li Hao, Zhong Xiaoman, Zhong Tian, and Chu Na. As for Chu Yang, he had appeared out of nowhere. Even with the addition of Chu Yang, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution was still at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers. While the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were sizing up the experts of the Zhao family, the experts of the Zhao family were also sizing up the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Everyone understood that the outcome of this battle would be decided by the leaders of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Chu Yang soon enjoyed the resentful gazes of the 2 brothers, Zhao Yunfei and Zhao Yunyang. "Since everyone is here, let's begin," the short deacon said. The 4 Qi Soul Realm experts seemed to have a tacit understanding. They took a step forward and took the lead to enter the entrance that looked faintly unstable. Soon, the figures of the 4 experts completely disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Coiling Dragon Secret Realm, the first stage of the core tournament, Gravity Field will now begin. Gravity Field. Chu Yang frowned. This Coiling Dragon Secret Realm was indeed strange. Not only him, the rest of the people were also somewhat surprised. "Why are you still not coming in?" 2 angry voices resounded at the same time. It seemed that they were angry at the disciples of various families for not being smart enough. In an instant, the leaders of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao family took the lead and leaped out. Their figures were like lightning as they instantly entered the entrance and entered the Coiling Dragon Secret Realm. After that, many disciples promptly followed them. For a moment, it was chaotic, like a school of fish competing to cross the Dragon Gate. After entering the Coiling Dragon Secret Realm, it was almost instantaneous to determine the winner. The 4 Qi Soul Realm experts were naturally the fastest. Like a gust of wind, they disappeared into the secret realm. Chu Na and the other leaders of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao family formed the first group. Following them was a group of more than 39th-level Origin Martial Realm experts. Although they were not peak experts, after all, they had already entered the 9th-level Origin Martial Realm. Their speed was not slow at all and they immediately caught up. After that, it was a group of more than 108th-level Origin Martial Realm disciples. However, due to the difference in strength among these people, the winner was slowly determined. Chapter 86. Aren't these people too rash? Chu Yang wasn't in a hurry. After entering the Coiling Dragon secret realm, he felt that the first thing he should do was to familiarize himself with the environment. Therefore, because of his cleverness, he was at the bottom of the pack. Very soon, he discovered his own stupidity. The Martial Institute must have probed and confirmed that there was no danger. He was just doing something unnecessary. However, Chu Yang wasn't without gains. The Yuan Qi in the Coiling Dragon secret realm was extremely dense. The gravity in the so-called gravity field was indeed much stronger than outside. It was roughly 3 to 4 times stronger than outside. The gravity was extremely unstable. Sometimes, it would suddenly become extremely heavy. Sometimes, it would suddenly become extremely light. At most, it would only be half of the gravity outside. Because of the density of the Yuan Qi in the Coiling Dragon secret realm, the gravity suddenly changed. The density of the Yuan Qi was actually able to faintly show the changes in gravity. It seemed that the heavier the gravity, the denser the Yuan Qi. The lighter the gravity, the thinner the Yuan Qi. Ah, there is a gain. It seems that I am not completely stupid. Chu Yang finally moved. He took a step forward, and covered a large distance in an instant. Then, he arrived at the place where the vital energy was the thinnest. Suddenly, he felt his body become light. It was as if he was about to float. Sure enough, Chu Yang didn't hesitate any longer, and immediately chased after him. Elephantine strides were the most suitable in this kind of domain because the areas with relatively light gravity weren't connected together, and they weren't in a straight line either. Therefore, the elephantine strides with a large span became the best choice. Not only that, Chu Yang's figure was elegant and at ease. While rushing, it was as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. His figure flickered as if he was jumping and teleporting. Every time he flickered, he would appear 20 meters away. His speed was extremely fast. In just a blink of an eye, Chu Yang had already caught up with the last disciple who was panting like a cow. This was a disciple of the Zhao family who was at the early stage of the 8th level of the primitive martial realm. At the beginning, he was full of physical strength and true qi. He exerted all his strength and madly ran. The change in gravity didn't seem to affect him much. But slowly, he couldn't, and the distance between him and the front gradually increased. Naturally, he wasn't the only one in such a situation. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao clan were the same. At this moment, it was clear who was stronger. Brother, is your zodiac sign a cow or a dog? Your tongue is sticking out so long and you're panting so heavily. You look like a dog and a cow at the same time. It's really confusing. Chu Yang stepped in the shape of a square. He floated like a cloud and passed by this disciple's side. He even made fun of him. Your whole family is a dog. Your whole family is born in the year of the ox. This disciple was already half dead from exhaustion. After being teased like this, he was enraged and opened his mouth. Soon after, he looked at Chu Yang's figure. He was so relaxed, and incomparably confident. What was most shocking was that his face wasn't red, nor was he out of breath. He was instantly stunned. This son of a bitch, how did he do it? Chu Yang's speed became faster and faster, drifting past one person after another. Fuck, what is this thing? Why can he float? It doesn't seem like he's struggling at all. It's as if he's afraid of flying into the sky. Master, this grandson isn't cheating, right? Why is he different? I'm so tired that I'm sticking out my tongue like a dog, panting like a cow, and sweating profusely. What about this grandson? I don't even see a dog's tongue or cow's lungs, let alone flowing rain and dew. I feel so unbalanced and uncomfortable. The most unbearable thing for the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao clan's disciples was that Chu Yang's movement technique was extremely confident. It was as though he was showing off his movement technique in front of a girl. They couldn't even recognize Chu Yang because Chu Yang's movement technique was too fleeting and fast. In just a moment, Chu Yang had already vanished in front of them. They could only see Chu Yang's back view from afar. Oh heavens, why are you so cruel? Why are people so different? Why do you have to let me see it? Someone had already started cursing. I say, brother, this is called the Sky Flash. I'm naturally more handsome than all of you. Everyone, you can start to be jealous now. If you aren't jealous, I won't have a sense of accomplishment. Chu Yang's uniqueness had already made many people depressed. Now that Chu Yang was teasing and provoking them, there were immediately people cursing in their hearts. That slut in front, don't you dare to not be so cool with your movement technique. There were more and more depressed people. As Chu Yang went all out, his speed became faster and faster. At times, he was like a cheerful little deer jumping forward. At other times, he was like a floating cloud. Be it the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution or the Zhao clan's disciples, they were all extremely unbalanced. They felt like they were being raised by a stepmother. Why was it so different? Why was he panting and sweating a little? Chapter 87. Can I study this gravitational field? If I can understand its principles and use it in martial arts, it will be very useful. Chu Yang's speed was extremely fast, and his figure was unrestrained and incomparably flirtatious. While he was strolling, he was already pondering this question in his heart. His fists were sometimes heavy, sometimes light, and would certainly make his opponent feel very uncomfortable. If he used it in sword arts, it would certainly be the same, which would make his sword arts even more unimaginable. This was only the first stage. Although he could obtain a certain amount of points, it was not very important. He would return after killing a few people. But in this Coiling Dragon secret territory, he would certainly have a great conflict with the people of Zhao family. And with Zhao Meng's character, who wanted to kill him in the martial courtyard tournament, how could he let him go here? Chu Yang suddenly stopped. Without anyone noticing, he swallowed 10 bottles of accumulation spirit pills, nourishing spirit pills, and chi-generating pills, and used his genius martial spirit to observe this naturally formed domain. It was somewhat whimsical. If others found out, he would certainly be ridiculed. But how would he know if he did not try? The gravitational force of the Earth on objects near its surface was called gravity. The gravitational force of the Earth on objects was divided into gravity and centripetal force moving around the Earth's central axis. Because the centripetal force was very small, it was generally believed that gravity was the Earth's gravitational force. Did you want to ask how gravity was created? Why would there be gravity if there was mass? If Newton's gravitational force was not enough, then there was Einstein's gravitational wave. In an instant, Chu Yang's brain almost exploded. He regretted it almost immediately. However, he completely released his spiritual power. In this space, he seemed to faintly see a distorted space-time. It was like a curved link connecting something. It seemed to be a direct shortcut. It seemed to be the wormhole that he knew. This is not the Coiling Dragon secret territory. Chu Yang was shocked. He immediately got rid of the speed of thinking of his previous life and tried to understand from the perspective of Qi. The flash Qi seemed to have become his eyes, and in this domain, he immediately saw masses of Qi. Oh my God, how can I see this? After that, Chu Yang came to a sudden understanding. This was a warped space that was weak and unstable. It was like a peerless beauty that had a problem in her head and would occasionally become abnormal. When she was not normal, she would take off her clothes. Chu Yang naturally saw everything. But it had to be said that Chu Yang was very lucky. Women with abnormal brains might not necessarily strip naked. Damn, I can still have such a good thing. Looks like my luck with women is going to explode. The mysteries of heaven and earth were revealed in front of him by this woman without any concealment. Chu Yang almost cried out in his heart. He had unintentionally stumbled upon such a great fortune. The Coiling Dragon secret realm and the Coiling Dragon fruit were nothing compared to this. He immediately immersed himself in his observation and soon discovered a pattern. Within this domain, there were many spherical air masses, which were the elements that affected gravity. They were either very round, very flat, and seemed to be all kinds of ellipses. There were all kinds of circles that were not extremely distorted, and they were all over this domain. With Chu Yang's current realm and his genius martial spirit, this was the limit of what he could see. He tried to use his true qi to simulate the air masses he saw. All kinds of ellipses and distorted circles. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of wind appeared beside Chu Yang. The extremely rich primordial energy in this space gathered towards him and shrouded him. He had successfully simulated the mass of energy. Boom! Following the change of the air masses in his body, the true qi that had gathered was instantly dispersed. It was as if the surrounding area had become a vacuum. After such an extreme change, the true qi's change was not as violent. The true qi that had gathered was sometimes dense and sometimes thin, just like the distribution of true qi in this domain. Bang! Chu Yang swung his hand like an elephant's trunk and stretched his palm forward. A huge suction force suddenly erupted from his palm and sucked in all the true qi around him. A whirlpool was formed in the center of his palm. The center of the whirlpool was pitch black, like a black hole. Unfortunately, Chu Yang only stretched out his hand toward the air. If there was something in front of him, it would probably be sucked into his hand in an instant. This was the suction force. Boom! Chu Yang suddenly pressed his hand forward. The scene suddenly changed. A wave of qi rushed out and formed ripples in the void. It was like a huge wave rushing into the distance. This was the repulsion force. Chapter 88. Chu Yang was soon no longer affected by the gravity of this domain as he comprehended the simulated air mass within his body. He floated up. All of this was extremely wondrous. It was as though he was a man who had tasted the pleasure of a man and a woman for the first time. Chu Yang was completely immersed in it. He wanted to take another step forward, but there seemed to be no door to heaven and no path to earth. It was all in vain. This thing is profound. Once you understand it, you'll understand it in an instant. If you don't understand it, it's useless no matter how much time you waste. Chu Yang knew he had reached his limit. It was impossible for him to take another step forward. If he didn't understand the first step, then he didn't understand it at all. No matter how much he studied it, it would be useless unless his realm increased and he could thoroughly comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth. This grandson, is he trying to make fun of us? Not long after, the people Chu Yang had overtaken had caught up. They couldn't help but be angry when they saw Chu Yang. He was actually waiting for them here. It was simply infuriating. Bastard, I'm tired as a dog, but he still wants to make fun of us. Damned grandson, I admit I'm your grandson, okay? Quickly disappear from our sight. If you're so capable, then go ahead and overtake the people in front. What kind of ability is showing off in front of us small fries? Embarrassing. The people who caught up were as tired as dogs. At this time, they couldn't help but curse. Chu Yang was too much of a bully. Chu Yang naturally wouldn't explain. Besides, he had to admit that he did have such a wicked sense of humor. He immediately laughed and said, "Little ones, the big fish and shrimps in front, the great king will definitely tease you. I'm not worried about you guys. I'm afraid you'll feel too inferior and commit suicide. That's why I'm sparing no effort to supervise you guys. All of you, remember this for the great king. Life is cruel, but little ones, you must be strong and stand up bravely. Fuck your grandpa. Hashuan Hashuan." The group of people cursed in their hearts at almost the same time. If it weren't for the fear of being taught a lesson by this grandson, they would have cursed Chu Yang back to his mother's womb. They wouldn't just curse in their hearts. Also, little ones, why aren't you kneeling down and greeting the great king? Hashuan Hashuan. This group of people had the heart to kill, but soon after, all of them were stunned. Chu Yang was like a god, actually floating up, slowly rising into the air, shocking them to the point that their eyeballs were about to fall out. Shua. In an instant, Chu Yang disappeared before their eyes as if he was flying. In the blink of an eye, he had completely disappeared without a trace. Fuck, this is real. This grandson can actually fly. Is he at the Chi Soul realm? Impossible, I know this grandson. He is the little sheep of the coiling dragon martial institution. Even if he explodes, he is definitely only at the peak 6th level of the primitive martial realm. What the hell? Am I here to see a ghost in this damned place? In an instant, this group of people who were left behind received a huge blow. They simply didn't want to live anymore. Especially when they recognized Chu Yang, they felt even more uncomfortable. They were also little sheep, so what couldn't they become like Chu Yang? Moreover, they wanted to fly too much now. They were already dog-tired. Suddenly, there was a burst of wailing and howling, and a burst of angry curses. Unfortunately, it was useless. Chu Yang couldn't hear half a word. In an instant, Chu Yang had completely surpassed the 3rd and 4th groups of 8th level primitive martial realm martial artists. His speed was getting faster and faster, leaving the dust behind. Not long after, he saw the 2nd group of 9th level primitive martial realm martial artists. When the people of the 2nd group were rushing madly, trying to catch up with the 1st group, they suddenly felt a gust of wind blowing from behind, causing them to feel a chill. However, when they saw that this gust of wind was actually a person, who had directly surpassed them at an astonishing speed, they were all dumbfounded. Chapter 89. The 2nd group of people didn't have time to react. Chu Yang's figure had completely disappeared from their line of sight. It seemed as if time had stopped at that place. Almost everyone was petrified. His speed could actually reach such an extent in such a gravitational field. These people were the elites of the elites from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao clan. Every one of them had cultivated a decent movement technique, and some of them had even trained their movement technique to the perfection stage. However, it was impossible for them to have such a terrifying speed. Even the 1st group of people in front of them didn't have such a speed. This speed was enough to scare people to death. Furthermore, it was extremely carefree. Even a Chi Soul Realm expert wouldn't be as casual and free as that person just now. At this moment, Chu Yang had already seen the 1st group in front of him. The origin Chi here was even denser, and it was as if a thick fog was lingering in the surroundings. He couldn't even see 3 meters in front of him, but there was an entrance in front of him. The entrance was dazzling and extended his line of sight. Chu Yang saw the situation of the 1st group. At the very front were the Zhao clans Zhao Yunjian and Zhao Yunj. Behind them were the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution's Li Hao, Zhong Tian, and Chu Yang's violent elder sister, Chu Na. At the very back were the Zhao clan's disciples, the 2 brothers, Zhao Yunyang and Zhao Yunfei, who had challenged Chu Yang before. The 2 of them were a little too far behind, and their movements weren't smooth. It was obvious that after they were injured by Chu Yang, their injuries hadn't completely healed, and this affected them greatly. Zhao Yunfei suddenly heard the sound of something breaking through the air behind him. He felt it was strange, and when he turned around, he was immediately shocked. It's actually you, Chu Yang. Previously, he had been paying attention to Chu Yang. However, at the beginning, he realized that Chu Yang was thinking himself to be smart and observing the situation around him. He couldn't help but ridicule him in his heart. It would have been fine if they were somewhere else, but there were 4 Chi Soul Realm experts leading the way. It would be foolish of them to worry about such things. Thus, after Zhao Yunfei sneered, he no longer put Chu Yang in his heart. Chu Yang would definitely fall behind this time, and it would be impossible for him to make up for his stupidity. However, he absolutely didn't expect that he would actually see Chu Yang as if he had seen a ghost. Chu Yang was actually able to bridge such a large gap and catch up. How is this possible? If his movement technique is so astonishing, who could compare to him? Seeing Chu Yang getting closer and closer, the Zhao brothers were immediately greatly shocked, setting off perilous waves. The 2 brothers' impression of Chu Yang was too deep and unforgettable. Chu Yang's swordsmanship was too terrifying. Without using his full strength, he beat them like dogs. Among the younger generation, no one could stand shoulder to shoulder with Chu Yang. However, they absolutely didn't expect Chu Yang's movement technique to be so terrifying, completely scaring them. This was because their movement techniques were definitely not bad. A movement technique of the high level of the origin martial realm had already been trained to the peak of perfection. It was even on the verge of perfection. If they hadn't been injured before, they definitely wouldn't have fallen so far behind. They would have been able to keep up with the people in front. However, what kind of speed did Chu Yang have? He was actually getting closer and closer. His movement technique was definitely superior to his own. It might even be a movement technique of the Chi Soul realm. And Chu Yang had clearly trained it to an extremely profound level. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to display such power. What level has this bastard reached? Why is he so terrifying? A gust of wind blew past while the two brothers were still in a trance. Chu Yang had already overtaken the two of them. They could only see a tall and imposing figure in front of them. Chu Yang's figure was chasing after them, and was madly dashing towards the people in front of them. Chapter 90. Boom. Chu Na, who had fallen behind Zhao Yunjian and Zhao Yunj, suddenly sped up. Her speed was at least twice as fast as before, and she actually took the lead in before Zhao Yunjian and Zhao Yunj, disappearing from the entrance. Swish swish swish. Zhao Yunjian, Zhao Yunj, Li Hao, and Zhong Tian also disappeared. On the other side of the entrance, the four Chi Soul Realm experts from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao clan were already waiting for them. They were waiting for the arrival of many disciples. From their faces, it was impossible to tell who had won the competition. Seeing that Chu Na was the first to arrive, the two deacons couldn't help but smile proudly. On the other hand, the two elders from the Zhao clan looked even more sinister. After that, the leaders of the two clans continued to enter. Only Wang Xiaoman and Zhao Xiaoyi were left behind as they had yet to enter. The two girls were running side by side. Just as they were about to rush in, a figure like a bolt of lightning overtook the two girls and passed through first. It's actually you. How is this possible? Little brother, it's you. This is great. Chu Yang, it's actually Chu Yang. Not only were the four Chi Soul Realm experts surprised, everyone was extremely surprised. They couldn't help but exclaim, especially the Zhao clan. They were the most shocked. It wasn't that the Zhao clan didn't notice Chu Yang, but that they had been paying attention to Chu Yang. Zhao Yunfei and his brother were both crushed by Chu Yang. This had already aroused their great interest. They knew that Chu Yang was extremely extraordinary. However, Chu Yang had already fallen far behind. But they didn't expect that he would actually catch up in the end. Especially when Chu Yang didn't seem to be exhausted at all. There wasn't even a single drop of sweat on his body. This made the Zhao clan disciples even more shocked as their expressions turned grave. How did he do it? In an instant, the two elders from the Zhao clan, Zhao Yunjian and Zhao Yunj, were all sizing up Chu Yang. Their eyes emitted a dangerous glow. Chu Na rolled her eyes. She had pretended to be pleasantly surprised just now, but Chu Yang was still noticed by the people of the Zhao clan. You damned little sheep. If you're lagging behind, then just stay behind. Why are you being such a jerk for your sister? Chu Na hated him to death, especially when she saw that Chu Yang looked so refreshed, as if he had not used up the slightest bit of energy. He had already exposed his strength without a doubt, making her really want to go up and beat Chu Yang up. However, this was only a matter of a short moment. Be it the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution or the Zhao clan's disciples, all of them had started to meditate to recover their chi. After flying all the way here, their chi had been greatly depleted. This was also the reason why Chu Yang shocked the Zhao clan the most. TSK. Chu Yang didn't care. I'm just strong. I'll let you see enough. So what if you know that I'm strong? I'm just being kind and giving you a warning. If you still dare to provoke me, I'll kill you and rob you. I have ample reasons. I'm not afraid of ghosts knocking on my door in the middle of the night. The tall and short deacons were already sighing in their hearts. They already knew from Nangong Ying and Li Yu that this little sheep was extraordinary. They were even specially instructed to pay more attention to this little sheep. Originally, they thought that this little sheep was going to hide his strength and were very satisfied. Who knew that things would turn out like this? Especially when they saw Chu Yang's disdainful expression towards the Zhao clan. The two deacons knew that this little sheep was going to be heavily taken care of by the Zhao clan. Chapter 91. Whether it was the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution or the Zhao family, they were all adjusting their breathing and recovering their qi. Chu Yang was even more eye-catching. Along the way, Chu Yang's true qi was consumed, but the true qi in his body, even if it was only at the peak of the 6th level of the origin martial realm, was many times more vigorous than an expert at the peak of the 9th level of the origin martial realm. Not to mention other things, such as refining and meridians widening, just the 3rd revolution of the origin martial realm was enough to leave the peak 9th level of the origin martial realm in the dust. The two elders of the Zhao family looked even more sinister, but Chu Yang wasn't afraid of them. This was what he wanted. Shoo, 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 shoo. The disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao family arrived one after another. Roughly 1 hour later, all the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao clan had arrived. Most of them didn't even have time to rest and recover their qi before the 4 Qi Soul Realm experts announced the official opening of the Coiling Dragon Mystic Domain. At this moment, many of them came to their senses and realized that the gravitational field wasn't the Coiling Dragon secret territory. They were only at the entrance of the Coiling Dragon secret territory. The 2 deacons of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the 2 elders of the Zhao family started to form seals. The seals were extremely complicated. Even though they were in the Qi Soul realm, the 4 of them were instantly flushed and sweating profusely. It was obvious that they had a strong repulsion force. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, there was a huge rumbling sound. Suddenly, it was as if 2 doors were slowly opening. Behind the doors was a dazzling light that couldn't be seen clearly. Is the Coiling Dragon secret territory inside? In a dimension like the Coiling Dragon secret territory, the world inside was sealed. This kind of small dimension could only be connected to the main world and wouldn't be annihilated by the spatial turbulence if it was attached to the main world. The door of the Coiling Dragon secret territory is now open and the large competition has officially begun. Let me emphasize to you that once you enter the Coiling Dragon secret territory, your life and death will be determined by fate. Is it too late to regret now? The 2 deacons emphasized the dangers of the Coiling Dragon secret territory once again. On the other side, the Zhao family didn't. They just looked at the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution with ridicule. I withdraw. I withdraw. I quit. In an instant, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution still had close to 10 people withdraw under the disdainful eyes of the Zhao clan. This made the Zhao clan even more contemptuous. The 2 deacons were somewhat ashamed and angry, but they could understand the choice of the martial courtyard disciples. After all, it was a matter of life and death. But because of this, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution's elite disciples were inferior to the Zhao clan. Now that their numbers were inferior to the Zhao clan, they were even weaker. Everyone else, remember this. The Coiling Dragon Mystery Realm will close in a month's time, and the spatial tunnel will disappear completely. So, remember, you only have a month's time inside. The 2 deacons patiently reminded him again and again, in this 1 month, you must go to the Coiling Dragon Mountain in the southeast of the Coiling Dragon secret territory and fight for the Coiling Dragon fruit there. After that, the young experts of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao clan all used their movement techniques and entered the Coiling Dragon Mystic Domain. Chu Yang's movements were extremely fast. He took a step forward and immediately felt an obvious distortion in the space. Soon after, he appeared in the Coiling Dragon Mystic Domain. In an instant, a burst of heaven and earth yuan qi rushed towards him. It was actually twice as rich as outside. If one were to cultivate here, it would definitely be half the result with twice the effort. Moreover, the exhausted true qi of the disciples of the 2 clans could be quickly recovered in such an environment. Rumor has it that many powerful sects would set up their important places in these small worlds. Sure enough, there is a reason for this. Chu Yang knew about this because he had read about it in the library of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Powerful sects would definitely have their own small worlds and would place their main inheritances in these small worlds. In a sealed small world, it would have a very good protective effect. It would be difficult for outsiders to pry into it. They could even use the small world to defend and avoid enemies. Moreover, the small world was rich in yuan qi and resources, which made it more suitable for cultivation. At this moment, Chu Yang felt that his body was ready to condense the 7th Wisdom King celestial body and break through to the 7th level of the incipient martial realm. Chapter 92. Chu Yang immediately tried to break through to the 7th level of the primitive martial realm. He could forcefully break through, but he was still a bit lacking. He did not want to leave any flaws in his perfect martial path, so he did not choose to break through immediately. Instead, he began to familiarize himself with the situation in the Coiling Dragon Secret Realm and headed towards the depths of the Coiling Dragon Secret Realm. The curtain of night gradually fell, and 2 crescent moons hung in the night sky. The moonlight poured down, passing through the dense leaves and projecting onto the ground full of fallen leaves, forming spots of light, making this untouched primitive forest have a trace of light. But the surroundings were still incomparably dark. From the depths of the forest came the low roar of demon beasts from time to time, adding a trace of life to this dark forest, but it made people nervous. A moonless and windy night, this was the time to kill. Chu Yang had already wandered around the Coiling Dragon Secret Realm for a long time, but he still had not met anyone from the Zhao family, but he had gained a lot, completely incomparable to the last trip to the Coiling Dragon mountain range. Night was the time of demon beasts. Chu Yang was cautious, and did not move at night. After all, there was no lack of Chi Soul Realm demon beasts in the Coiling Dragon Secret Realm, and even more terrifying demon beasts. Rustle, rustle. A gust of wind blew, rustling sounds came from all directions. At this time, Chu Yang smelled a trace of blood in the wind. Instantly his whole body tensed up. Shua. He flew into an open space, stepping on a thick layer of fallen leaves, vigilant of the surroundings. Jia. It seemed like something in the darkness knew that it had been discovered, so it let out a strange cry that sounded like a human, but also not like a human. Immediately, Chu Yang saw a pair of extremely oily green eyes in the darkness. It was not a wolf. This demon beast looked like a monkey. In the darkness, its body was faintly more than 1 zhong tall. Man-eating monkey. Chu Yang's pupils shrank. The intelligence of a man-eating monkey was definitely not inferior to a human. It was exceptionally intelligent, since this man-eating monkey had silently approached. If not for the trace of blood in the wind, Chu Yang was afraid that he would not have discovered it. Not only that, the man-eating monkey knew how to use tools. It was extremely good at finding divine iron and black gold. It could even forge its own weapons. This so-called man-eating monkey, you could completely see it as a savage. As for why they were called man-eating monkeys, it was because they loved to eat human brains. Therefore, it liked to hunt and kill people the most. Moreover, after it had surrounded and hunted people, it would first tease them before killing them. Jia. At this moment, the man-eating monkey came out of the darkness with a strange smile. Under the moonlight, Chu Yang saw clearly. The man-eating monkey had blood-red hair, like steel thorns. It held an unsharpened broadsword in its hand, and a pair of scarlet eyes were looking at Chu Yang playfully, like a cat looking at Chu Yang, the mouse. Its other hand was holding a corpse. It hadn't been dead for long, and there was still blood flowing out of its body. Disciples of the martial courtyard. Chu Yang's killing intent suddenly rose, and he seemed to feel Chu Yang's anger crack. The man-eating monkey broke the neck of the corpse, twisted it a few times, and directly twisted the head off. The monkey's claws were as sharp as knives. It skillfully opened the skull and tasted the human brain bit by bit, revealing an incomparably intoxicated expression. Chapter 93. Man-eating monkey, a 9th-rank origin martial realm monster. Its whole body was as if it was forged from steel, invulnerable to swords and spears. Chu Yang's killing intent suddenly blazed. He assessed that killing this man-eating monkey was very troublesome and even dangerous, but it should not be impossible. Shio. The man-eating monkey threw the head in its hand towards Chu Yang and made a strange sound, meaning that he wanted to taste the taste of the human brain. This monkey's intelligence was definitely not worse than a human's. Pa. Chu Yang caught the head and his hands were instantly covered with blood. He closed the man's eyes and coldly said, "Bastard, you're dead." Jia. The man-eating monkey's claws suddenly pinched the corpse's broken neck. In an instant, the blood and essence of the corpse were crazily devoured. In an instant, the corpse shriveled up like an air-dried corpse. It can still devour. This must be a mutated man-eating monkey. Chu Yong narrowed his eyes. His evaluation of this ferocious monkey instantly jumped up a few levels. If this ferocious monkey was mutated, then its intelligence would be much higher than that of an ordinary person. Perhaps its strength would be difficult to measure. Dong. Suddenly, the man-eating monkey's 4 limbs were on the ground. The red hair on its neck stood up. Its face was ferocious and its mouth was filled with steel teeth. With a swoosh, it jumped up as fast as lightning. Its sharp claws grabbed the unsharpened broadsword and chopped towards Chu Yang. It was truly ferocious and shocking. Shua. Chu Yang took a step with the great 1,000-leaf steps. The monkey's blade missed. Its small blood-red eyes saw the great 1,000-leaf steps and suddenly burst out with light. Immediately, it stopped. Its 2 monkey legs actually imitated Chu Yang's great 1,000-leaf steps. It actually took a fancy to Chu Yang's great 1,000-leaf step. What was even more amazing was that this monkey, after a few tries, its 2 monkey legs actually changed into shadows. It actually mastered it. Chu Yang's heart was greatly shocked. This monkey was simply heaven-defying. Gwugwa. The ferocious monkey let out a strange cry. The expression on his face was extremely playful. Soon after, he grinned fiendishly. The monkey arm suddenly exerted force, the big knife whistling as it chopped down once again. This strike was a heavy strike, heavy and fast. Chu Yang had previously fought with his big brother, Chu Fei, and felt the power of this gravity. When this fierce monkey used it, the power was even more shocking. After all, Big Brother would not hold back when he attacked, but this fierce monkey was different. The large saber slashed down, stirring up a strong wind that blew up all the fallen leaves on the ground. They danced in the air, forming a withered yellow dragon. Some of the fallen leaves even shattered. This attack almost had the power of a Chi Soul expert. Pa. The wind was as sharp as a knife. Chu Yang's headband was cut apart, and his hair fluttered in the wind. He had no room to dodge. Pa pa pa. In an instant, Chu Yang formed 8 arms. Soon after, 2 crisp sounds were heard. The 9th arm and the 10th arm were also thrown out. Recently, he rarely practiced the great 1,000-leaf hands, but at this moment, he used it again. It actually stepped into the realm of perfection from the peak of perfection. Great 1,000-leaf hands, 10 hands dancing in unison. Pa, pa, pa. Crisp sounds rang out incessantly. Suddenly, the large saber was like a tree deeply rooted in the ground. It was swaying from the slap, as if its roots were about to be pulled out from the ground. However, Chu Yang only felt his palm go numb and abnormally cold. It was as if he had lost all feeling from the cold. Chapter 94. The momentum of the saber only decreased slightly before it exploded again, emitting an earth-shattering aura. Its speed increased slightly as it charged towards Chu Yang. If this saber landed on his body, even Chu Yang would probably be split in half. Boom! The 10 arms exploded, transforming into 100 leaves. Like moths to a flame, they bombarded the saber, causing a series of explosions. Shua. Chu Yang dodged to the side with the help of the great 1,000-leaf hands. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound was heard behind him. A towering ancient tree that was hundreds of years old was chopped in half, and fell to the ground with a loud crash. The 100 leaves of the great 1,000-leaf hands were just as Chu Yang had expected. They couldn't block this saber at all. This savage monkey is actually so shocking. Chu Yang was shocked. The joy in the savage monkey's eyes became even more dazzling. It was obviously very fond of the great 1,000-leaf hands. With a roar, the saber slashed towards Chu Yang again, as if it wanted to force Chu Yang's great 1,000-leaf hands out completely. At this moment, Chu Yang seemed to finally understand why the man-eating monkey would play like a cat playing with a mouse after catching a human. It was obvious that they were learning the martial arts of humans. What an arrogant savage monkey. Do you really think I'm made of mud? Who? 3 elephant phantoms appeared behind Chu Yang, erupting with the power of 3 elephants. Like an elephant fetching water, his hand swung out like an elephant's trunk, grabbing the saber with a snap. He then pulled the saber fiercely and charged towards the savage monkey in an instant. Gigi. The power of 3 elephants. The savage monkey cried out. It was obviously shocked and immediately threw away the saber in its hand to meet Chu Yang. One man and one beast met in midair. The savage monkey was more than 10 feet tall and looked down majestically. In comparison, Chu Yang was pitifully small. Kai. The savage monkey's arms suddenly grew out, and 2 sharp claws grabbed at his head, emitting a sharp whistle. It's the same technique as the 1,000 Faces technique. Chu Yang was shocked. He also used a similar technique. Amidst the cracking sounds, his body suddenly lowered, causing the sharp claws to grab empty air. However, it missed by just a hair. At the same time, Chu Yang used the second technique of the Great 1,000-Leaf Hands. 50 arms swapped out and landed on the ferocious monkey's chest, creating a series of explosive sound. This ferocious monkey's body was as hard as steel. It took the full brunt of his Great 1,000-Leaf Hands and the 500-leaf attacks without suffering a single injury. It roared angrily and clawed at his head again. Its sharp nails cut through the air with a kai-kai sound. Chu Yang hurriedly retracted his head again, only to see the 5 claws flick lightly, narrowly grazing his forehead. The air current was like a knife, piercing through his skin and leaving 5 bloody scars. If he hadn't dodged quickly, his skull would have been split into 5 or 6 pieces. One man and one beast crossed each other in midair. Chu Yang landed on the ground and turned around like a whirlwind. His feet landed on the ground and his true energy exploded, producing a peng 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 sound. The ground was blasted open with a half-foot deep pit. His aura rose to the peak in an instant. True energy surged above his head. His body was like a flying sword, leaping dozens of feet away. His body emitted a dragon's roar, and 50 arms appeared. Each arm was like the claws of a flood dragon. In an instant, the Great 1,000-Leaf Hands, the deadly wind-chasing sword, and the 18 flood dragon strikes merged into one. Like a sword, a flood dragon, and a Buddha, he blasted out in an attempt to release this ferocious monkey. The power of the 3 elephants also completely erupted. Boom! A strong wind broke through his body, setting off a violent gale. His might overflowed into the sky. Every arm cut through the air, light and heavy. His comprehension of the gravity field was also integrated into it. The power of the martial arts combined into one increased by an unknown amount. Roar. Chapter 95. Strong winds blew in all directions, and the ground was lifted up by the aftermath of the fight, causing dead leaves to swirl in the air. This fierce monkey's strength is so great, and his perception is so shocking. Chu Yang was shocked in his heart. The power of 3 elephants was absolutely terrifying in the origin martial realm, but this fierce monkey not only immediately learned the second type of his Great 1,000-Leaf Hands, but its strength was absolutely not below the power of 3 elephants. It was actually able to contend with him. He forcefully suppressed his shock and threw out another punch. The power of this punch was even stronger than the previous one. In addition to the previous 3 techniques, he had also mixed in some of the profound meanings of the Golden Emperor technique, 1,000 Faces technique, and Fragrant Elephant Vigorous technique. With a whoosh, the surrounding air was sucked clean, forming a vacuum force field. The fierce monkey was finally forced back a step. It was so angry that it pounded its chest and roared. Its figure moved as fast as lightning, and its sharp claws stabbed towards Chu Yang's head. Its speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it could advance and retreat, leaving behind after-images around Chu Yang. At first glance, it looked like 8 or 9 fierce monkeys were attacking him. Chu Yang's feet were nailed to the ground. No matter where the fierce monkey pounced, he could only force it back with brute force, but he was still unable to kill it. Boom! This is what I hear. In the midst of the fierce battle, Chu Yang's body suddenly erupted with a great amount of true qi. A Buddhist chant resounded. At this moment, he finally broke through to the peak of the 7th level of the origin martial realm. The 7th wisdom King Dharma idol condensed in his body, and it was still rapidly increasing. Early 7th level of the origin martial realm. Middle 7th level of the origin martial realm. Late 7th level of the origin martial realm. Peak 7th level of the origin martial realm. At this moment, his true chi skyrocketed, and his strength also rose. A faint image of a divine elephant appeared behind him, but in the end, it collapsed. He had actually increased the power of half an elephant. Chu Yang let out a long howl. Bastard, do you really think I can't do anything to you? Boom. Waves of energy surged. With Chu Yang as the center, 3 energy fields formed. At this moment, it was as if he had manifested his past life, present life, and future life. 2 phantoms appeared, standing side by side with him. Chu Yang had finally used the 3rd revolution of the origin martial skill, triple eruption. Chu Yang let out a long howl and attacked again. His speed suddenly increased by 3 times, and the strength of his hands also increased by 3 times. The ferocious monkey realized that something was wrong. It screamed and wanted to escape, but how could it be faster than Chu Yang? It turned around and threw a punch at Chu Yang. With a cracking sound, the bones in its arm were instantly shattered. A huge force bombarded its body, causing its face to change color. Its eyes were filled with panic. Bang! The ferocious monkey's entire arm exploded. Blood, flesh, and broken bones swirled in the air. Its body was like a piece of porcelain that was covered with terrifying cracks. However, the most shocking thing was that it actually did not directly explode. It could be seen just how terrifying its body was. At this moment, there was only fear and shock in its scarlet eyes. It no longer had its original ferocious nature. It was almost scared out of its wits by Chu Yang. It never thought that Chu Yang would be so terrifying, to be able to explode with the power of 9 elephants in an instant. Poor bastard, wasting my energy. Chu Yang searched its body, but did not find anything. He only threw the unsharpened blade into his storage ring. Such an action caused the ferocious monkey's eyes to widen. It was actually looked down upon. What are you staring at? Chu Yang twisted its head and sent it flying with a kick. It rolled on the ground for a few rounds. Surprisingly, this ferocious monkey hadn't died yet. Its pair of scarlet eyes were filled with resentment. Yi. Chu Yang was very surprised. Soon after, he sneered, "That's fine. Don't you like eating human brains? I'll dig your brain out and see if you die or not." Pa. Chapter 96. What? This vicious monkey actually has such an ability. It wants to obliterate my soul and take over my body. Chu Yang was greatly shocked. He never thought that this vicious beast would actually have such a divine ability. This was definitely not as simple as a mutated man-eating monkey. Jia jia. In his consciousness, the ferocious monkey's strange laughter was heard. Chu Yang's shock obviously made it very happy, but suddenly, the strange laughter stopped abruptly. At this moment, in Chu Yang's consciousness, a golden monkey suddenly saw Chu Yang's destiny twin martial spirit and immediately kowtowed. Its eyes were filled with fear, as if it had provoked a supreme existence. Yi. Chu Yang was once again shocked. This kind of vicious monkey actually had times when it was afraid. This monkey knows its wrongs. Please spare this monkey's life. This monkey will definitely not dare to be impudent again. This golden monkey actually immediately begged Chu Yang for mercy. Its appearance made Chu Yang have a further understanding of the extraordinariness of his destiny twin. Spare you? What's the reason? Chu Yang coldly said, "You seem to be completely useless. Not only are you a pauper, you are also a piece of trash." Pauper, this vicious monkey seemed to immediately know Chu Yang's nature and promptly said, "I can refine tools, arrange formations, and even practice martial arts on behalf of Master. There is nothing I can't do." Tch. Chu Yang disdained, "You can refine tools, but I can't. You can arrange formations, but I can't. Do I need you to practice martial arts?" With the genius martial spirit, he could refine pills, refine tools, and learn formations. Chu Yang felt that as long as he was willing to learn, how difficult could it be? As for practicing martial arts, a monkey like him could be compared to a genius martial spirit. Although Master is a heaven-warping martial artist and omnipotent, There are some small matters that this monkey can do on behalf of Master so that he won't be distracted. Chu Yang was actually tempted. Especially when they fought, this monkey was actually able to learn the second technique of the Great Thousand Leaf Hands. This was too shocking. You're just a piece of trash. Staying in my consciousness is what distracts me the most. Master, I can become Master's martial spirit and sign a soul contract with it. Master won't have to worry about this monkey offending you. Martial spirit. Chu Yang was shocked. How could this be possible? His astonishment immediately calmed the monkey's anxious heart down. Master, this little trash does indeed have such a small use. Master, you are a heavenly martial artist and omnipotent. Please leave this little trash with his lowly life. With one more martial spirit, Chu Yang would have 5 martial spirits. The more martial spirits he had, the more benefits he would receive. If my guess is correct, the Flood Dragon martial spirit was formed by the medicinal effect of the coiling dragon fruit in the Azure Dragon pill, and then, Chu Yang's heart was immediately aroused, but he was still disdainful. Little trash, this is not bad. At least you are still somewhat useful. Show me. Yes, Master is omnipotent. In his consciousness, a mark flew out from the golden monkey and entered the depths of Chu Yang's consciousness. Immediately, Chu Yang felt that he could control the life and death of this ferocious monkey at any time. The golden monkey was like a goldfish that he was raising in a water tank. It was a very strange feeling. Immediately after, the golden monkey moved and endless origin chi surged in, replenishing the origin chi that was consumed when using the origin martial third revolution. At the same time, he even felt that there were countless golden monkeys in his body, refining his flesh as if they were forging tools. Chapter 97. Oh my heavens! That's possible. Doesn't that mean that even if he doesn't practice martial arts, he can still increase his cultivation level? Fierce Monkey said that he could help him practice martial arts. Chu Yang didn't know the reason. Maybe this was a martial spirit formed from Fierce Monkey's soul, and it was a special martial spirit. That's right. Chu Yang was in a good mood. From now on, you will be called Little Six, Son Little Six. Fierce Monkey was not satisfied with this name, because it was too casual. My great master, why do I have to be surnamed Sun? Why do I have to be called Little Six? Because you are not Sun Wukong, you do not know the 72 transformations, you cannot overthrow the Jade Emperor, and you are not six-eared macaque. Chu Yang said, Master, I have high hopes for you. I hope that you can become the combination of Sun Wukong and six-eared macaque. The combination of names is perfect. Sun Wukong, Sun, six-eared macaque, Little Six. Fierce Monkey immediately understood Chu Yang's thoughts, and complained, My omnipotent master, are Sun Wukong and six-eared macaque very powerful? As a monkey with inherited memories, he had never heard of Sun Wukong and six-eared macaque. It would be strange if he knew. Let me put it this way. Chu Yang said, Sun Wukong took down the pillar of heaven, and turned it into a stick to play with. It weighed millions of pounds, and could be big or small. He even turned it into a strand of monkey hair and put it in his ear. Tell me, isn't that powerful? Fierce Monkey felt that Chu Yang was talking nonsense, but he could only accept his fate. My great master, Little Six will not disappoint you. Oh right, Little Six. Chu Yang suddenly opened his mouth and said, You're very impressive. You managed to learn the second cultivation technique of my Great Thousand Leaf Hands just by looking at it. Chu Yang was actually very concerned about this. Hee. Sun Little Six said, Master, this is my innate ability, I can't explain it clearly. Although it is very powerful, but compared to Master, it is much weaker. Innate ability, it was talent. In terms of talent, this was amazing. Chu Yang even suspected that this fierce monkey was not a man-eating monkey. It was impossible for a man-eating monkey to be so ridiculous. Chu Yang didn't want this monkey to be too cocky. He said indifferently, That's right. Little Six, let me study these cultivation techniques. Let me see how high your talent is. Yes, my wise master. At this moment, Chu Yang was already calculating. If this monkey was really that amazing, he could minimize the use of his genius martial spirit and save a lot of pills. The great thousand-leaf hands. Master is indeed wise. Wind-chasing life-taking sword. Master is indeed a shocking person. 18 flood dragon strikes. Master is indeed omnipotent. This ferocious monkey's endless flattery came right away. At this moment, it was truly a flattering monkey. Suddenly, it saw the Mahamayuri scripture and immediately exclaimed, "Origin martial third transformation, it is actually the origin martial third transformation." This time, it was truly shocked and even forgot to flatter. Chu Yang was proud of himself. "Little guy, I can't take care of you." Then, Chu Yang stopped paying attention to the monkey. He used the idiot martial spirit and fell into a deep sleep. The monkey was like a martial arts maniac. It had completely sunk into a state of madness and was studying the origin martial skill. The next day, Chu Yang continued to walk around the coiling dragon secret territory. After having Little Six, this native, Chu Yang was completely familiar with the coiling dragon secret territory. Chapter 98. According to Little Six's guess, there should be a terrifying existence hibernating in the deepest part. In addition, there were all kinds of strange life forms, which were extremely powerful. Little Six gave Chu Yang a very pertinent suggestion, which was to stroll around the so-called coiling dragon secret territory, otherwise, it would be difficult to keep his life. Time flew by like a white steed. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Chu Yang had traversed a very long area in these 3 days and had already arrived at the edge of the Coiling Dragon Mountain. Coiling Dragon Mountain, as its name suggested, it seemed like a huge dragon was suppressed under the mountain. The mountain range was like a huge dragon spreading out, very majestic and very wide. It was not much different from the Coiling Dragon Mountain range outside. In these 3 days, it could be said that Chu Yang did not have a moment of peace. Inside the Coiling Dragon secret territory, demon beasts were everywhere, and he could casually encounter 9th-level demon beasts. Especially after approaching the Coiling Dragon Mountain, the demon beasts were getting more and more powerful. No wonder it was said that in fact, even Chi-Soul Realm warriors would die at any time. According to what Little Six said, the so-called Coiling Dragon secret domain was just a space created by a supreme existence that was hibernating in this different world. It was used as a distraction to prevent the deeper world from being discovered. If that was the case, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao clan were extremely fortunate. If it wasn't for the supreme existence purposely turning this place into a dimension where Chi-Soul Realm cultivators could roam freely and forbid demonic beasts from entering the depths, not to mention the Coiling Dragon fruit, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and Zhao clan would have perished regardless of how many of them entered. In these 3 days, Chu Yang had beheaded at least hundreds of Hutian 9th stage demon beasts. At the same time, he had also found many precious herbs. This trip could be said to be not cheap. Of course, the points in his waste token were also astonishing. If a 9th stage demon beast was calculated as 50 points, Chu Yang now had 5,000 points. However, Chu Yang felt very uncomfortable. These were the points he obtained by painstakingly killing demon beasts. It was really too hard, far less satisfying than killing people and robbing them. This made Little Six realize once again the ferocity of its master. "Ha ha ha, Chu Yang, I've been looking for you for 3 days. I've finally found you. If I don't tear you to pieces today, my surname isn't Zhao." Suddenly, from a dense forest in the distance, a wild laughter accompanied by wild joy pierced into Chu Yang's ears. Immediately, many sounds of breaking through the air came in this direction. Soon, a figure flew over from the top of a tree in the distance. In a short while, he had already arrived in front of Chu Yang. The 2 brothers, Zhao Yunfei and Zhao Yunyang. When Zhao Yunfei saw Chu Yang, his face was immediately filled with killing intent. He gritted his teeth, wanting nothing more than to bite Chu Yang to death. As a top core disciple of the Zhao family, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? That humiliation was even worse than killing him. Although Chu Yang was merciful, in his opinion, it was Chu Yang who humiliated him. It was the greatest humiliation in his life. Only by killing Chu Yang could he wash away the humiliation on his body. "It's you two trash, didn't I tell you to take a detour when you see me? Why are you so disobedient?" Chu Yang now only hoped that they weren't poor. It would be best if they had the Azure Dragon elixir on them. Chu Yang, you still dare to be arrogant in this place? The two brothers' faces were filled with resentment. Previously, you humiliated us in front of everyone. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Today is the day you die. We will definitely tear you to pieces to wash away the humiliation of us two brothers. Ignorant things, if it wasn't for your Zhao family in the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, you two trash would already be dead. Chu Yang sneered and pointed at the two brothers. I will kill you two as easily as slaughtering chickens and dogs. The two brothers' faces suddenly turned red, just like a monkey's butt. Chu Yang's words deeply stimulated their self-esteem. Bastard, didn't you hear the sound of something breaking through the air? Along with Zhao Yunfei's voice, 5 or 6 figures instantly appeared not far away, and soon arrived in front of Chu Yang. Chu Yang quickly recognized them. There was also the second-ranked core disciple of the Zhao family, Zhao Yunj, as well as the branch disciples Zhao Jing, Zhao Yang, and Zhao Hongyuan. If Zhao Yunfei and Zhao Hongyuan were counted, Zhao family had a total of 6 top core disciples, and now there were 6 of them in front of Chu Yang. There were also more than a dozen Hutian 9th stage Zhao family disciples. Although they weren't at the top level, they were still extremely powerful. Chu Yang was very sure that Zhao Yunfei and Zhao Hongyuan alone didn't have such strength. The Zhao family's desire to kill him was extremely intense. Chu Yang, today you are dead. I will directly cripple you, then drag you out to feed the demon beasts. I want to see you bitten to death. Zhao Yunfei's complexion was cruel, full of resentment. Previously, they were completely defeated by Chu Yang, making them unable to raise their heads in the Zhao family. Fortunately, Chu Yang was indeed amazing, otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to find such an opportunity to take revenge. Chapter 99. Chu Yang sneered. If he did not have the slightest ability, he would have died here today. Little Six looked at this group of people and was already mourning for them. They could have killed anyone else, but they had to kill such a cruel person. I'm going to hang myself from the southeast if I eat human brains. I just want to know, are you poor ghosts? Chu Yang laughed happily. To be exact, do you poor bastards have Azure Dragon elixirs on you? You're courting death. Azure Dragon Dan is not something you can covet. The Zhao family's disciples had ugly expressions and were all furious. This Chu Yang was too arrogant. As for killing Chu Yang, they did not have any burdens. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao family did not deal with each other. They only maintained peace on the surface. In private, they had been attacking each other for a long time. To be exact, they were now extremely eager to kill Chu Yang. Without a doubt, Chu Yang was the newly risen genius of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. The Zhao family was extremely afraid. The elders had already warned them that no matter what, they must kill Chu Yang. Die, with just you guys. You rotten potatoes and stinky eggs. Chu Yang was disdainful. Suddenly, he smiled and said, tell me, if so many of you die at once, your vitality will be greatly damaged. If so, will anyone cry? I'm very sorry. Ridiculous. Everyone, let's go together and cripple him alive. Cripple him and throw him to the demon beast. Zhao Yunfei's face was sinister as he roared. He could not wait. Boom. In an instant, a few 9th-level origin martial realm Zhao family's disciples rushed up together. All kinds of martial arts bloomed in their hands. To be able to cultivate to 9th-level origin martial realm at such a young age, which one of them was not proud? Multicolored true qi exploded in the air, shaking out a terrifying qi wave, all of which blasted towards Chu Yang. Swish. Chu Yang took out the large blade that Little Six had used just now. Although this large blade had not been sharpened, it was extremely heavy and extremely cold. A slash of the blade instantly blossomed with a dazzling light. The long blade turned into a comet with a long tail, cutting through the air and smashing towards those people. This saber strike was extremely heavy. At this moment, Chu Yang comprehended the light and heavy qi masses in his body constantly changed. At the same time, he also infused the profound meaning of the divine elephant carrying mountains into this saber strike. Boom. There was a loud explosion as Chu Yang's saber was like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. It completely wiped out their attacks. The saber light enveloped all the Zhao clan disciples who attacked. How dare you? Zhao Yunj was shocked and angered. He immediately took action. A long spear, the tip of which shone with a cold light, pierced out. The tip of the spear erupted with terrifying sharpness, transforming into numerous spear shadows that stabbed towards Chu Yang. He wanted to nail Chu Yang to death. Who are you playing in front of? This is Lao's specialty, do you understand? Chu Yang's move did not change. With a rumbling sound, the large blade chopped down. The Zhao clan's 9th-level origin martial realm disciple was directly cut in half at the waist. His flesh was badly mangled and he was incomparably miserable. This was the strength of the saber, it had a large killing area. As for dealing with this group of Zhao clan disciples, he did not feel that he needed to use a sword. At the same time, Chu Yang's other hand, like an elephant's trunk, accurately grabbed the tip of the spear and then fiercely pulled it, changing extremely quickly. These few moves were very dangerous, but Chu Yang easily completed them. Zhao Yunj was suddenly alarmed when he was pulled over. He hurriedly grabbed the spear, but at this time, Chu Yang directly smashed the large blade in his hand. One force to break 10,000 techniques, there was no need for any moves. Zhao Yunj blocked with his spear. Clang! A loud sound of metal clashing resounded as Chu Yang's saber chopped down on Zhao Yunj's spear. Zhao Yunj's palm was directly split open by the impact. Kill! Zhao Yunj saw the miserable appearance of the Zhao clan disciple and went completely crazy. Chu Yang, if you don't die, the heavens will not tolerate it. I must let you suffer all the torture in the world and die miserably, only then can I be worthy of the dead Zhao clan disciples. Want to kill me? Chu Yang sneered, you really don't have eyesight. Until now, you still haven't figured out the situation. Today, none of you will leave, all of you will die here. Buzz. The large blade in Chu Yang's hand did not seem to be a blade, but a giant club, a sledgehammer, smashing down. The light on it was dazzling, as if it had transformed into a brilliant star. The endless Zhun Qi smashed the air, making it seem like the air was wailing and exploding unceasingly. Clang! Zhao Yunj blocked with his spear. The spear was bent and almost broke. A terrifying Qi wave exploded. Both of his hands were numb and blood flowed out. His heart was frightened. How could Chu Yang have such a terrifying strength? Chapter 100. I feel it. Chu Yang's second blade smashed down. Seeing this, Xiao Liu curled his lips. My blade is not a hammer. You're using it as a hammer. You're really uncultured. Bang! Once again, there was a huge explosion and the spear in Zhao Yunj's hand was directly broken into two pieces. His hands were shaken by a huge power and the bones in his hands were cracked. He felt that his hands were about to explode. How is this possible? How can you have such a terrifying power? Zhao Yunj's eyes were filled with horror. Just a moment ago, he felt as if a huge mountain had smashed down on his spear. That kind of copious huge power was like a tidal wave and had directly broken his spear. What kind of terrifying power was this? He was at the peak of 9th-level origin martial realm and was about to enter the Chi Soul realm. He had the power of an elephant but he was simply unable to resist. He was as weak as a worm. Third blade. The third saber was chopped down at lightning speed. And at this time, the other disciples of the Zhao clan finally reacted, and rushed towards Chu Yang one after another. Zhao Yunyang's strength wasn't high. But, his speed was the fastest. That was because he was the one who was most eager to torture Chu Yang to death. You have no eyesight. Even if you die, you won't die in vain. Chu Yang sneered and directly smashed down his blade towards Zhao Yunyang. His speed was as fast as lightning and a sharp whistling sound was heard. No. Zhao Yunfei's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He loudly shouted but there was no way to save Zhao Yunyang who was close at hand. Poochie. In front of Zhao Yunfei's horrified expression, Chu Yang's unsharpened blade directly and brutally chopped Zhao Yunyang into two halves. A lot of flesh and blood burst into pieces. Ah! Little brother, Chu Yang, I'm going to kill you. Zhao Yunfei went completely mad and charged over without regard for anything else. How could he be Chu Yang's opponent? Chu Yang's blade was like a brilliant meteor streaking across the starry sky, cutting through the air and directly chopping Zhao Yunfei into two halves. Zhao Yunfei's body was spasming and twitching on the ground. How is this possible? How could this be possible? The members of the Zhao clan besieged Chu Yang, but the result was that whoever went up died. Other than Zhao Yunj, who was still alive, the rest were all dead. What was even more shocking was that Chu Yang wasn't using some bullshit knife technique at all. He was swinging the big knife like a hammer. What was going on? How could such a bizarre thing happen? The disciples of the Zhao family felt as if the sky was collapsing and the earth was caving in. They were shaken to the point that their nerves seemed to have snapped. Kill him. We must kill him. We can't let him grow. Zhao Yunj, Zhao Yang, Zhao Hongyuan, and the other top disciples of the Zhao family also cried out in fear. How old was this Chu Yang? He wasn't even 17 years old, yet he was already so terrifying. If he was allowed to fully mature, how terrifying would he be? Just thinking about it made people shudder. Chu Yang only sneered. His black hair fluttered in the wind as he held the big knife in his hand. Blood was constantly dripping from the blade. There was still flesh and blood on the blade. His expression was extremely cold, as if he was a living god of death. Zhao Yunj and the others hadn't even made a move when Chu Yang's big knife chi had already chopped down. Many of them were immediately chopped to death. You actually dared to kill so many people of my Zhao clan. You're dead. Our Zhao clan will definitely not let you go. A 9th level origin martial realm disciple of the Zhao clan was still clamoring. You're joking. Life and death in the Coiling Dragon secret realm is up to fate. If I die in your hands, the Coiling Dragon Martial Arts Institute will be unreasonable. Isn't this your plan? Now you're telling me this, today, I'll kill all of you. Chu Yang was extremely disdainful. He didn't stop and took a step forward. In an instant, he had already rushed in front of the 9th level origin martial realm disciple and chopped him into two halves with his knife. In an instant, only Zhao Yunj, Zhao Hongyuan, Zhao Yang and a few others were left. They seemed to have formed a formation to jointly attack Chu Yang. Tumpiech, today, I'll let you die completely convince. Roar. An earth-shattering sound of elephant trumpeting was heard. Suddenly, 3 huge virtual shadows of elephants appeared behind Chu Yang. The power of 3 elephants. How is this possible? How can you have the power of 3 elephants? Zhao Yunj and the others were scared out of their wits. Only the power of 3 elephants. Go down and ask King Yama if it's right. Boom. The big knife chopped down. Zhao Yunj, Zhao Yang and the others were instantly sent flying and vomited blood. The power of 3.5 elephants. Only the power of 3.5 elephants. When Chu Yang used the origin martial third revolution and 9 divine elephants appeared behind him, Zhao Yunj and the others were almost scared out of their wits. They were completely desperate and were killed one by one. Chapter 101. Coiling Dragon Secret Realm, Coiling Dragon Mountain, Light Barrier. Inside the light barrier was a tree. The tree was 10 feet tall, and its trunk could easily be hugged by a person. Its entire body was green as crystal. There were 9 fruits on the tree, and they fell on the branches, bending the branches. The fist-sized fruit seemed to be coiled around by a green dragon, but that dragon only had a rough shape and did not have a specific face. Coiling Dragon Tree, Coiling Dragon Fruit. The light barrier was a formation that the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao family spent a lot of effort to set up. Firstly, it was to protect the Coiling Dragon Tree and prevent the Coiling Dragon Fruit from being stolen by demonic beasts. Secondly, it was to make it easier for the 2 families to obtain the Coiling Dragon Fruit. Outside the light barrier, a group of 7 or 8 people flew through the forest. Every one of them was at least at the 9th level of the origin martial realm. This was the group of people from the Zhao family that had entered the Coiling Dragon secret realm. The number 1 disciple of the Zhao family, Zhao Yunjian, and the strongest female disciple of the Zhao family, Zhao Xiaoi, were among them. However, What was surprising was that the leader was not the two of them. Instead, it was another handsome young man in his 20s with handsome features and a dignified appearance. Senior brother Song. After stopping outside the light barrier, Zhao Yun shouted, "These disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution are troublesome. Why don't we go and kill them all first?" The youth with the surname Song frowned slightly and said indifferently, "When the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were teleported in, most of them were already scattered. How long would it take to find and kill them all? Furthermore, those people from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution can't do anything to me. That's natural. Senior brother Song has already entered the Chi Soul realm. However, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution only has Chu-Na as their leader. She should be in the half-step Chi Soul realm and will be difficult to deal with." The head was the head of the 6 sons. Half-step Chi Soul realm. Specifically, after reaching the peak of the 9th level of the Origin Martial realm, one would open the head acupoint and connect the heaven and earth bridge. True Chi and martial soul would be completely connected without any obstruction. It was called the half-step Chi Soul realm. Zhao Yunjian frowned and said, "In addition, her brother, Chu Yang, might be troublesome. He can easily defeat our core disciples. I'm afraid his strength is not simple." "It doesn't matter. A half-step into the Chi Soul realm is still not a Chi Soul realm cultivator after all. Compared to me, she is far weaker. At most, her strength is on par with yours. If I were to kill Chu-Na, it would be as easy as flipping my hand," the young man surnamed Song said. "Besides, no matter what, their final target will be this place. We'll just have to kill them all at once." Suddenly, the young man became extremely displeased. "Why are there so few of you? Senior brother, Yun Ji, and the others have gone to kill Chu Yang. That's the younger brother of Chu-Na, Chu Yang. Yes." The young man with the surname Song was getting a little enraged. "Can't you tell what's important?" As he spoke, his eyes turned cold as he looked at Zhao Yunjian. "You should know that the Coiling Dragon fruit cannot be lost this time. For this reason, the Azure Dragon School and the Zhao clan racked their brains to arrange for you and the core disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution to compete for this Coiling Dragon fruit. You should know better than me what the Coiling Dragon fruit represent." Zhao Yunjian naturally knew that once the Zhao clan obtained more Coiling Dragon fruits, the clan head, Zhao Ba's strength would definitely rise higher than the dean of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, Nangong Ying. As such, the Zhao clan would very likely clean up the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and change the surname of the institution to Zhao. From then on, only the Zhao clan would be able to call the wind and summon the rain in the Coiling Dragon town. They would be able to establish a relationship with the 5 Elements sect and send as many Zhao clan disciples as they wanted to. "Senior brother," Zhao Yunjian explained the reason. "My second uncle suspects that this Chu Yang killed Yun Hu and stole the Azure Dragon Elixir and Sword Heart Sky Flame." Buzz. The youth surnamed Song was suddenly enraged, and the image of a huge snake appeared behind him. Even Zhao Yunjian was scared out of his wits. This was a technique of the Chi Soul realm. Although it had not been completely revealed, it was still very shocking. When Chi and martial soul were fused, the martial soul would refine Chi into Chi. With Chi, one could visualize and construct weapons like cauldrons, bells, and swords. One could also visualize spirit beasts like pythons, ferocious tigers, flood dragons, and gold rock. One could even construct rivers, mountains, stars, and even the sun and moon. Chapter 102. Are you sure he's the one who killed my second cousin? The young man with the surname Song was the only son of the Azure Dragon School's sect leader, Song Lai. He was also the young sect leader of the Azure Dragon School. At this moment, Song Hongtu was extremely furious. The Sword Heart Heavenly Flame was originally his. He took the risk to enter the Sun Moon Cave to lure away a heaven-devouring python so that Zhao Meng could take the Sword Heart Heavenly Flame away. However, it was snatched away halfway, causing him to work for nothing and be happy for nothing. It should be him, Zhao Yunjian said coldly. Second uncle was only guessing. At that time, he thought that Chu Yang couldn't kill an 8th-level Origin martial realm expert. However, judging from Chu Yang's recent performance, he's only at the peak of 6th level Origin Martial Realm. He could easily crush a 9th level Origin Martial Realm disciple. Who else could it be but him? That means the Sword Heart Heavenly Fire must be in his hand. This was what Song Hongtu was most concerned about. If I can find the Sword Heart Heavenly Fire, thinking of this, Song Hongtu's heart burned with passion. If I go to the Sun Moon Cave again and obtain the Saber Crystal Earth Water, and temper it with fire and water, my cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. Advancing to the Ascending Soul tier will be just around the corner. That should be the case. Zhao Yundian answered cautiously. If not, he wasn't sure how Song Hongtu would react. However, he was sure that he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. As for the Sword Heart Heavenly Fire, the Zhao family didn't know much about it. Over the past few days, the Zhao family and Azure Dragon School were focused on the Coiling Dragon Mountain range. They were waiting for the person who snatched the Sword Heart Heavenly Fire to arrive. They believed that the other party must have known the secret of the Sun Moon Cave. Very good. Song Hongtu's gaze became even colder. This bastard dared to kill my cousin and snatch my Sword Heart Heavenly Fire. I will make him beg for death. Then, he looked at the Coiling Dragon Tree. The Sword Heart Heavenly Fire is very important. However, the Coiling Dragon Fruit can't be lost. You should know the secret behind the Azure Dragon Elixir. Those fools from the Coiling Dragon Martial Arts Institute are just wasting natural resources. How could Zhao Yundian not know that the Azure Dragon Elixir was extremely mysterious? However, the most attractive part was that the Dragon Elixir could improve the martial spirit. He even heard that if one had enough Azure Dragon Elixir, it could even form a new martial spirit. We can't make any mistakes in this matter. Looking at Zhao Yundian's resolute expression, Song Hongtu smiled faintly. There is no hurry now. There is still some time before the Coiling Dragon fruit ripens. Be it the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution or those demonic beasts, none of them would come to contest for it. Once it ripens, we will settle everything once and for all. After a pause, Song Hongtu was afraid that the Sword Heart Heavenly Flame might be lost, so he changed his mind. Let's get rid of those trash from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution first. It should be safer. When the time comes, there will be a chaotic battle, and I reckon that I will need your help. Yes. The Zhao family's disciples agreed one after another, not daring to disobey. Of course, Song Hongtu knew that they were only afraid of him. When the time came, they would be worried about his safety, so they wouldn't risk their lives. He said again, if we succeed, all of you will have contributed greatly. I won't say anything else, but each of you will have at least one Azure Dragon pellet. With me here, helping you all to reach the Chi Soul realm is a piece of cake. Do you understand? There was no need for him to instigate any further. In an instant, the hearts of the Zhao family disciples burned with passion. That was the Azure Dragon pellet. Chapter 103. Pauper, all of you are pauper. Chu Yang swept through the battlefield. Apart from the Divine Accumulation Pill, Qi Generating Pill, and Body Nourishing Pill, there were all kinds of techniques of the Origin Martial Realm. He actually didn't find a single Azure Dragon Pill, which made him very surprised. Previously, when he killed Zhao Yunhu, the number of Azure Dragon Dans he obtained from his body was counted in bottles, not in pills. Could it be that only Zhao Yunhu was raised by his mother, and all of you were raised by his stepmother? Chu Yang was extremely depressed. He was hoping to get a few Azure Dragon Dans for research, but in the end, he didn't get anything. This is simply a waste of my energy. I should have known that I would have run away to avoid so much trouble. This was the truth. He had to admit that he killed these people from the Zhao clan. Otherwise, the wrath of the Zhao clan would be transferred to the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Even if he didn't care about the disciples of the Martial Institution, he couldn't ignore his violent sister. After having fun, he found out the repercussions. Ayo, having a family is also a big problem. It seriously affects me killing people. Little Six heard this and gritted his teeth. His master was too cruel. How was he like a human? He was the same as himself, eating human brains. At the same time, Little Six was also cursing in his heart. He didn't know who was the one who said that the martial skills and the dance should be given to. Little Six mistakenly thought that his master didn't want to kill people he was familiar with. Who would have thought that he would complain in a blink of an eye? Little Six, you are already dead. If you keep the treasures you hid, they will only mold. Quickly give them to your master. Your master is in imminent danger. Chu Yang was only at the peak of the 7th level of the origin martial realm. He estimated that if the 2 elders of the Zhao clan made a move against him, he would be dead. Little Six gritted his teeth again. How many times had he said this? The monkey really didn't hide anything. Why didn't he believe the monkey? Wise and mighty boss, there is nothing left. They all entered my stomach. I say, Little Six, Chu Yang said earnestly, you should know that if your boss is so awesome, reviving you is a piece of cake for him. I think you should work harder. As he spoke, he roared, Little Six, do you have it or not? With your boss's strength, he'll end up dead if he's not careful. Little Six couldn't help but roll his eyes. You don't bring anything with you when you're born, and you don't bring anything with you when you're dead. How could I not understand this logic? You're actually still thinking about the monkey's dead money. Boss, the reason why you can't increase your cultivation level is because of the 3rd transformation of the Sha martial realm. Boss, not only is the quality of your Zhen Qi unparalleled under the heavens, the amount of Zhen Qi is even greater than before. Boss, your body is becoming more and more heroic, but in Little Six's opinion, you can still go one step further. Little Six heroically changed the topic. And, this left Chu Yang dumbfounded for a moment. Liuzi, are you saying that Grandpa's body is too weak right now and can't hold more Zhen Qi, so I can't break through? If a martial artist's Zhen Qi was water, then the body was a container. When the container was full, it would naturally overflow. In other words, Chu Yang was like this now. He couldn't hold more Zhen Qi, so he couldn't break through to the 8th level of the Sha martial realm. Boss, if you weren't an incomplete Xiantian lifeform, not to mention the 8th level of the Sha martial realm, you wouldn't even be able to reach the 2nd transformation. Your Zhen Qi would have been full long ago. Incomplete Xiantian lifeform? Chu Yang was stunned. Little Six, are you talking about my sword Dao body? He naturally didn't know that his body had been transformed by the sword Heart Skyfire. Little Six also didn't know. In any case, it disdained it. It had nothing to do with the sword Dao body. However, Little Six didn't want to be ravaged, so it flattered him decisively. Yes, yes, yes. It's the body of sword Dao. Boss, you're really omnipotent. You even cultivated the great body of sword Dao. Chapter 104. Fuck. Little Six cursed in his heart. This fellow was truly born in the year of the dog. If he didn't say that, then what would the monkey say? You are clearly an incomplete being, and you are so ugly yet you still let others say that. It was a slip of the tongue, a slip of the tongue. Little Six's mind was in chaos. Only then did he think of the right words. Boss, your sword Dao body has just been formed. It shines in all directions and is omnipotent. Stop flattering me, Chu Yang said. Tell me, how can I become even more radiant and omnipotent? Little Six passed a secret technique into Chu Yang's mind. Chu Yang immediately jumped up. Little Six, if you want to commit suicide then don't take me with you. This secret technique was far too dangerous. Little Six's lips twitched. Boss, that's what I do. I never lie. Because Little Six is following a boss with a transcendent divine might, my monkey life is filled with infinite expectations. Chu Yang roughly understood. For an incomplete Xiantian life form, as long as one destroyed the incomplete, they would be complete. Just thinking about that secret body forging technique made his scalp tingle. Suddenly, he asked, Little Six, are you a Xiantian life form? Little Six proudly said, of course boss. As boss's little follower, I must have a certain status. Otherwise, I would be disgracing boss. Little Six, you're not bad. Chu Yang was shocked. But what I don't understand is, with your status, why do you have to be so cruel? Isn't that just degrading? Eating human brains? I don't even want to look down on you. Boss, have you ever seen a person eat a monkey's brain? Little Six's sudden words made Chu Yang stiffen. How could he not know? He used 2 plates to clamp the monkey's head and dug it open. Then, he used a spoon to scoop it raw and ate it spoonful by spoonful. This was cruel, cruel to the extreme. Is Little Six taking revenge? It definitely was. Little Six, your master is a merciful Buddha. Normally when he steps on an ant, he cries for 3 days and 3 nights. Little Six instantly despised Chu Yang. It only needed to open its mouth to understand everything about Chu Yang's character. It seriously suspected that Chu Yang had eaten a monkey's brain. Who was more ferocious than the other? Anyway, Little Six was ashamed of its inferiority. After thinking about it for a while, Chu Yang decided to do something and went to Liu Zi's home. The misty pond was shrouded in mist, and nothing could be seen within half a meter. The heaven and earth spirit chi here was extremely dense. The sound of water gurgling could be heard as ancient trees towered into the sky. Chu Yang sat down and began to cultivate. Little Six's secret technique was indeed very savage, completely putting one in a position of death and then regenerating, breaking and then re-establishing, going against the flow. This was not just a secret technique, but a divine ability of the physical body. Chu Yang concluded that this was definitely not all of it, but only a small portion. As for the rest, Chu Yang concluded that Little Six had kept it for himself. This secret technique was very simple. The first step was to forcibly extract all the Xiantian qi from the physical body, gather it in the dantian, and then reconstruct the physical body. Chu Yang swallowed a large amount of pills and immediately used his genius martial spirit. Then, according to the secret technique of body tempering, the method of gathering the Xiantian qi in the body, and obvious changes appeared. His lustrous skin slowly became dim, like a withered leaf, and soon became like the bark of an old tree. Naturally, it was not just that. The Xiantian qi in the muscles, bones, meridians, internal organs, and blood was all extracted by Chu Yang and gathered in the dantian. This Xiantian qi was not enough. If it was enough, he would not be an incomplete Xiantian life form. Chapter 105. Chu Yang activated the genius martial spirit and the full martial spirit at the same time, and gradually closed his eyes. Immediately, he seemed to have turned into a stone, without any signs of life. As expected of the legendary martial spirit. It's simply frightening to enter such a realm in an instant. It seems that it's fate that I will die at his hands. Liu Zi watched from the side and sighed. In such a realm, if he tried 10,000 times, he might accidentally break into it once, but Chu Yang did it so casually. Peng! Suddenly, raging flames burst out from Chu Yang's body. The sword heart heavenly fire was also activated at this time. As Chu Yang entered such a realm, it seemed to have also entered such a realm of death and immortality, of emptiness and yet not emptiness. A divine sword born from nature. At this time, Liu Zi finally knew where Chu Yang, an incomplete Xiantian life form, had come from. A divine sword born from nature. Xiantian life forms had different life forms and were not restricted. The sword heart heavenly fire was a kind of Xiantian life form. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. In these 7 days, the Xiantian qi in Chu Yang's body grew little by little. In the end, his body, which had lost its luster and withered, was filled again. On the 8th day, the flames that enveloped his body disappeared, and at this moment, Chu Yang woke up again. The first step was also the most dangerous step, breaking the bones. The bones were the support of the human body. Once broken, the body would become a pile of mud. One careless mistake could lead to eternal damnation. Ka. The vital energy in Chu Yang's body enveloped all of his bones and temporarily replaced them. Soon after, the sound of bones breaking and shattering could be heard from within his body. In an instant, his bones were shattered like glass. However, even though they were shattered, they did not scatter. Instead, they were still intact and had completely gathered together. The second step, breaking the acupuncture points. Pa, pa, pa. Another series of explosions rang out from his body as all the acupuncture points in his body were broken open. The third step, breaking the meridians. Chu Yang's 8 extraordinary meridians were all broken. The fourth step, blood condensation. Chu Yang guided all the blood in his body to gather in his dantian, mixing it with the xiantian qi. After a while, everything in his dantian merged together, spinning crazily. Then, like a dam bursting open, the xiantian qi burst out and rushed to every part of his body, nourishing his internal organs, reshaping his acupuncture points, meridians, tendons, and bones. Crackle, 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 crackle like thunder sounded continuously. Rumble. There were thunderous sounds in Chu Yang's body as well. The thunderous sounds reverberated throughout the world, as if announcing something. The lightning in his body seemed to have awakened everything that was sleeping in his body. Another loud sound rang out. The clap of thunder in the sky was even more shocking, oppressive, and aged. At this moment, in the Coiling Dragon secret domain, whether it was the disciples of the Coiling Dragon martial institution or the disciples of the Zhao clan, when they heard the thunderous roar, they couldn't help but be astonished and looked towards the sky. What was that sound? What was going on? They didn't know, but they had an inexplicable feeling in their hearts, and this feeling was inexplicable. Rumble, once again, the oppressive and aged voice came from afar, shaking everyone's heart. What was going on? Not to mention the Coiling Dragon martial institution and the Zhao clan, even the demonic beasts in the Coiling Dragon secret domain were shocked. However, no one knew what was going on. Everyone was at a loss. They just stood there, watching in shock and bewilderment. Rumble, the aged voice sounded again, and the Coiling Dragon secret domain began to tremble violently. Chapter 106. Just as everyone was puzzled, a strange scene suddenly appeared in the eastern void of the Coiling Dragon mystic realm. The scene was abnormally blurry, and nothing could be seen clearly. It was like a mass of chaos. In an instant, a giant appeared from the chaos and blur. Behind him was a huge sun, and there seemed to be a golden divine treasure in his body that was releasing endless golden radiance. What is this? Not only were they shocked, but Little Six was also shocked. It had already begun to curse. Who exactly is the Xiantian life form? That bastard cultivated it himself, but it's actually even more frightening than this monkey, producing such a shocking phenomenon. The more Little Six looked, the more his face twitched. The huge sun is fire, and this is the symbol of the great sun innate body. The giant spirit is earth, earth, and earth, and this is the symbol of the great earth innate body. The golden divine treasure is gold, and this is the symbol of the golden innate body. Fire gave birth to earth, and earth gave birth to gold. Little Six completely understood that Chu Yang's Xiantian life innate body was closely related to the sword heart heavenly fire in his body. Fire and gold were the sword heart heavenly fire, and its main attribute was gold. Hidden in Chu Yang's body, earth gave birth to gold. Therefore, Chu Yang was earth, and this was why such a scene appeared. Rumble, that familiar yet strange, thunderous roar sounded again, and the ground began to tremble violently. Countless cracks appeared where Chu Yang was. The cracks were like countless flood dragons that were wantonly spreading out. In the nearby forest, trees fell one after another. Another thunderous roar sounded, and it seemed to come from the void. At this moment, such a heaven and earth phenomenon caused the demonic beasts in the Coiling Dragon mystic realm to prostrate on the ground in fear. As for the people of the Coiling Dragon martial institution and the Zhao clan, they were also terrified. They were flabbergasted and terrified. The giant in the air was even clearer now. It was surrounded by golden light, as if it was a golden giant. It seemed to be tens of thousands of feet tall, standing between heaven and earth. Its aura was majestic, and its power could cover heaven and earth. When it opened its eyes, it was as if the sun and the moon appeared together. As it breathed, it inhaled and exhaled. With a slight movement of its hand, it could block out the sky and cover the sun. At this moment, Chu Yang's eyes suddenly opened. His black pupils were filled with sharpness as he let out a long howl. This howl seemed to come from the 9 heavens, but it also seemed to come from the 9 hells. It came from all directions, and a majestic aura swept out in all directions. Crackle. A series of low and soft thunderous sounds continuously rang out from Chu Yang's body. At this moment, every inch of his skin was trembling violently. His muscles and bones were continuously opening and closing, his meridians were madly expanding. His qi and blood flowed back to every part of his body, reaching the ends of his hair. His internal organs were violently pulsating. In an instant, it was as if there were 10,000 bolts of lightning around him, and a fierce wind blew in all directions. Boom, 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 boom. Another 4 loud sounds rang out. The 8th Wisdom King Dharma idol condensed in an instant within Chu Yang's body. The surrounding mist-like qi of heaven and earth was completely swallowed up at this moment. The nearby scene was instantly vivid in his eyes, as if a large curtain had been pulled open. This was a pond that was neither too big nor too small. The surface of the water was sparkling, and the surrounding vegetation was lush and verdant. There were many fruit trees that bore all kinds of fruits. It was indeed the favorite place of monkeys. Early stage of the 8th level of the origin martial realm, middle stage of the 8th level of the origin martial realm, late stage of the 8th level of the origin martial realm, peak of the 8th level of the origin martial realm. In an instant, Chu Yang broke through to the peak of the 8th level of the origin martial realm. He faintly wanted to condense the 9th Wisdom King Dharma idol, but he did not have enough true qi to condense it, so he stopped abruptly. The true qi in Chu Yang's body surged, and a great power surged again, as if it was about to overflow from his body. He could not help but let out a long howl that resounded through the heavens and the earth. The sound waves spread far and wide. Roar, roar, roar. 4 divine elephants appeared behind him. The power of the 4 elephants. I only increased the power of half an elephant. Chapter 107. Chu Yang couldn't contain his joy, but it wasn't as ridiculous as he had imagined. His strength had only increased by half a mammoth. He was still not a pure Xiantian lifeform, so 1 round of refinement wasn't enough. He would need a second and third time, but each round would be far less effective than the last. And even if he continued to refine, he wouldn't become a perfect Xiantian lifeform. He would only be infinitely close, like the decimal point behind pi. He could only be infinitely close to becoming a Xiantian lifeform. Chu Yang was curious, but not very curious. So what if Liu Zi was a Xiantian lifeform? Liu Zi was a Xiantian lifeform, but he was still defeated by him. Bullshit, Xiantian lifeforms are useless. At most, it's a body tempering technique. Liu Zi could only laugh at Chu Yang's conclusion. Sour grapes. Liu Zi wanted Chu Yang to be even more sour. Omnipotent Master, why don't you try and see if you can breathe fire? Breathe fire? Chu Yang's true energy gathered into a cloud, and he spat out a tongue of fire. Omnipotent Master, why don't you try and see if you can breathe fire? Breathe fire? Chu Yang looked down on him. When he formed the body of Sword Dao, his breath was like a sword, but he still breathed fire. Clang, clang, clang. Chu Yang opened his mouth and spat out a golden light. 9 golden flying swords were spat out. They looked like real swords. Compared to the original exhalation of swords, they were much more powerful. Omnipotent Master, why don't you try and see if you can breathe fire? Little Six was so arrogant that he finally exposed his bad intentions. Chu Yang's appearance just now was like a toad spitting saliva. Although he instantly realized that he had made a mistake and desperately begged for mercy, his 4 limbs were still nailed to the ground like a toad. Chu Yang continued to experiment. He didn't know how to breathe fire, but he could control the weight of the air mass. When he used it now, he found that the weight had increased by a lot. Before, he could make it 3 or 4 times heavier, but now he could make it 5 or 6 times heavier. When I use fire, sword, and earth-type cultivation techniques, my power will increase by at least 30%. Chu Yang was delighted, but he disdainfully complained, chicken ribs. Liu Zi could only assume that Chu Yang was envious and jealous. It's better to break through to the 8th level of the primitive martial realm. After this round of body forging, Chu Yang felt that the bottleneck of the primitive martial realm had completely disappeared. As long as he absorbed enough true qi, he could instantly break through to the peak of the 9th level of the primitive martial realm. Boom! Chu Yang fiercely stomped on the ground, and instantly soared into the sky like a cannonball. He directly flew over a small mountain, and exploded a huge crater in the ground. It was very shocking. The third revolution of the primitive martial is still the most useful. With this sentence, Liu Zi completely lost his temper. Even Xiantian lifeforms couldn't cultivate it, but Chu Yang had actually cultivated it. Relying on the short burst of power of the third transition of the primitive martial art, killing a first-tier Qi Soul Realm martial artist was only a matter of minutes. Half a month had already passed since he entered the Coiling Dragon secret realm. There were about 15 days left. In the following time, he had to continuously increase his points. Although he already had about 5,000 points in hand, it was still not enough. After all, when it came to things like points, of course, the more the better. For Chu Yang, whose combat strength was comparable to the Qi Soul Realm, it was too easy to earn points. Now, demon beasts at the 9th level of the primitive martial realm were simply too weak to withstand a single blow from him. Time passed day by day. While Chu Yang was polishing his martial techniques, he was also killing demonic beasts. His points were also increasing rapidly. After 3 days, Chu Yang had already accumulated more than 10,000 points. He didn't have any intention of stopping. Zhao family was not necessarily bad, so to be cautious, the more points the better. Chapter 108. The competition for the Coiling Dragon Fruit was the main event. Chu Yang had plenty of time to understand the situation in the Coiling Dragon Mountain and the Zhao clan's trump card. He also had to guard against various demonic beasts. Qi Soul Realm demonic beasts might appear for the Coiling Dragon Fruit. Qi Soul Realm demonic beasts were already intelligent. The stronger the demonic beast, the more intelligent it would be. Some of the stronger demonic beasts could even transform into human form. When Chu Yang was heading towards the Coiling Dragon Mountain, the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution had already arrived. They were gathered outside the light screen on the peak of the Coiling Dragon Mountain. Li Hao and Chu Na were leading the way. During this period of time, they had already earned enough points. However, many of them had also died. This was only the beginning of the cruelty. The rules of the competition were simply to encourage both parties to kill each other. The real tragedy would soon begin. Senior sister, your little brother is not here yet. Did something unexpected happen? Li Hao frowned. Originally, he had only considered Chu Yang to be a top core disciple of the Zhao clan, and this was already the limit in his opinion. However, during these days in the Coiling Dragon Mystery Realm, he had discovered that the people of the Zhao clan were frantically searching for Chu Yang. From the shock and anger of the Zhao clan members, he vaguely knew that Chu Yang seemed to have killed the top core disciples of the Zhao clan. Only Zhao Yundian and Zhao Xiaoyi were left. You don't have to worry about him. Even if we are all dead, he will probably be fine. Chu Na wasn't worried at all. She even curled her lips and looked at the Zhao clan with disdain. Li Hao, Wang Xiaoman, and Zhong Tian were aghast. At this moment, they vaguely knew that Chu Yang might be the true trump card of their martial institution. Just like the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, the assassins of the Zhao clan also chose to gather together. The reason was simple. If they were scattered outside, the opponent would find an opportunity to kill them one by one. In fact, both sides had already clashed many times in the open and in the dark. Both sides had suffered a lot of casualties, but they were able to exchange blows and neither side was at a disadvantage. Li Hao and the rest were shocked when they saw the number of people gathered by the Zhao clan. Originally, the Zhao clan had more people than them, but now, they seemed to have fewer people. Could it be that they were all killed by Chu Yang? After Wang Xiaoman finished speaking, she was shocked and covered her red lips with her small hand. Li Hao and Zhong Tian couldn't help but tremble. If this was the case, then Chu Yang's combat power was simply heaven-defying. He alone could kill more people than all of them combined. However, they discovered that Chu-Na actually did not have a trace of surprise on her face. Their hearts could not help but tremble a few more times. Chu-Na was indeed not surprised. She had already been surprised. The strength that Chu Yang had displayed when he had used Fragrant Elephant crossing the river, when he had fought with her father, and when he had fought with her elder brother had already far exceeded her imagination. But suddenly, she clenched her teeth and said, "Damned little sheep, you better not kill too ruthlessly. Otherwise, the Zhao family will jump up and fight back with all their might. If the losses of the martial institution are too disastrous, I will definitely beat you up when I return." What is she worried about? Did I hear wrongly? She is actually afraid of killing too many and the Zhao family will go crazy and retaliate. Chu-Na's calmness and her reaction allowed Li Hao and the rest of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution's disciples to be relieved. They were no longer on tenterhooks because they had a huge backer, Chu Yang. The tall and short deacon of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the two elders of the Zhao clan had already gone to sweep the nearby demonic beasts. There were no demonic beasts around now. If there were demonic beasts that the four of them couldn't deal with, they would definitely seek help from outside. At this moment, the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution and the Zhao clan were facing each other across the air. The disciples of the martial institution noticed that the Zhao clan's disciples seemed to be frantically searching for something. Combined with what Chu-Na said earlier, they quickly found the answer: Chu Yang. The Zhao clan was indeed killed by Chu Yang. Perhaps what they heard earlier was true. Chu Yang killed all the elite disciples of the Zhao clan, leaving only Zhao Yunjian and Zhao Xiaoyi. The coiling dragon fruit is about to ripen, and the contest for the coiling dragon fruit is about to begin. The killing intent of the Zhao clan made Chu-Na turn solemn. Before the two deacons arrive, everyone has to be 120% alert. We indeed have to guard against the Zhao clan's tricks. This has already happened in the past. Li Hao continued, "Furthermore, I don't know why, but I keep feeling that something is amiss. The Zhao clan seems to be plotting something, which is making my eyelids twitch. I have also sensed it." Zhong Tian was a man of few words. He opened his mouth and said, "Especially after I heard that senior sister's little brother displayed his invincible prowess, I also feel that the Zhao clan's actions are a little strange." This made the disciples of the martial institution tense up again. Me. At this moment, a cold snort exploded in the ears of the martial institution's disciples. "So what if you have sensed it? It's too late. Today, all of you will die here." Rumble. Chapter 109. Outside the Shield of Light on Mount Coiling Dragon. The reek of blood was thick, and the area around the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution was filled with rivers of blood. Corpses of demonlings were piled up like mountains, ranging from the 1st to 9th stages of the incipient martial stage. However, most of them were in the 6th stage or lower. Not far away, in the light membrane, the 9 green jade-colored fruits on the coiling dragon tree that looked like green jade were also sparkling and translucent at this moment. An alluring fragrance spread out from the fruits and mixed with the smell of blood. It seemed to have become a unique fruit fragrance. In another area, the Zhao clan didn't have a single demonling corpse. Not even a drop of blood could be seen. Compared to the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, the disciples of the Zhao clan didn't even have a single wrinkle on their clothes. In the middle of the two groups of people was a white-faced man. He had white hands, a white folding fan, and a white robe embroidered with a white flower. Apparently, he knew that blood would be shed today, and had chosen to wear white clothes that looked like snow. The coiling dragon tree behind him seemed to be a god tree, and the Shield of Light seemed to be the God Legion paradise. It was almost as if he were a godchild from the God Legion paradise, and his white robes made him feel holy and pure. It was Song Hongtu. He was looking at the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution with a mocking expression. He was looking at their corpses, their severed limbs, their flowing blood, their panting, their exhaustion, their anger, and despair. It was a very interesting sight, and he didn't seem to get tired of it. "You really are despicable and shameless, Zhao clan. Not only do you want to take all the coiling dragon fruits for yourself, but you also want to slaughter the entire Coiling Dragon Martial Institution. Have you thought about the consequences?" Li Hao stared coldly at the other party. He did not know Song Hongtu, but he could feel how powerful and dangerous Song Hongtu was. He was the trump card of the Zhao clan, and also their most dangerous opponent. If you kill us, you'll all die. Dean Nangong definitely won't let you bastards off the hook. The disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were both enraged and in despair. Chu Na narrowed her eyes. She was probably going to die here today. The Zhao clan actually had the means to control the demonic beasts, and the Zhao clan could have killed all of them long ago, but they didn't. There was something strange about this. After that, she understood that they were waiting for her younger brother, Chu Yang. Chu Na couldn't help but feel anxious. So what if I kill all of you? Zhao Yunjian sneered and licked his lips as though he was licking the blood of the Coiling Dragon Martial Insti Tute's disciple. His expression was filled with ridicule like a cat toying with a mouse. Kill all of us. The Coiling Dragon Martial Institute will definitely find your Zhao clan and demand an explanation. Some of the disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution were terrified when facing death. They helplessly and laughably repeated the same reason. Ha ha ha. The Zhao clan disciples laughed loudly as they watched. It was as if they were watching a person whose throat had been slit, desperately clutching his throat before death. That kind of helplessness and despair was extremely interesting. You want to denounce our Zhao family? What was the reason? You disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Insti Tuition are all trash. You want our Zhao clan to take responsibility for your deaths. Zhao Xiaoyi looked at Song Hongtu with admiration. At the same time, she sneered, you want us to be responsible for you being trash? Ha ha. The Zhao clan disciples burst into laughter and were extremely pleased. What Zhao Xiaoyi said was too reasonable. You are trash, and we still have to take responsibility for you being trash. If we want to find you, we should find the heavens. The Coiling Dragon Martial Insti Tuition's disciples could only be angry. This Coiling Dragon Mystic Domains competition was indeed a matter of life and death. Even if they were all killed, the Coiling Dragon Martial Insti Tuition wouldn't have much reason. They could only blame the Zhao clan for being vicious and merciless. What else could they say? Life and death depends on one's ability. After killing all of you, so what if Nangong Ying stomps his feet? What reason could he bring out? Zhao Yunjian broke the last line of defense in the hearts of the Coiling Dragon Martial Insti Tuition's disciples. Don't count on it. Your two deacons are now working together with our two clan elders to kill a demonic beast. After all of you are dead, they might become corpses as well. No scruples. Chu Na's expression changed. The Zhao clan had gone mad and had already planned to completely break off relations with the Coiling Dragon Martial Insti Tuition. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.